Good morning, one and all. It is 6:15. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone here on Radio Westchester, your train station at the train, actually your radio station at the train station. It is Thursday, December 12th, 2019, 29 degrees. It's clear. It's going to get up only to 35 today, but clear all day. We'll be back with a full broadcast of the weather in just a moment. Our top stories this morning, and one of them just out of New York, very troubling. A young woman up at college was murdered, and actually the day before yesterday. Most of the story just coming in now. Here in New Rochelle, embattled, the New Rochelle football coach resigns, and we'll tell you what we know, what we don't know about the resignation. And also at 9 o'clock, we'll talk with Bob Cox about the full specter of what has gone on and where we go. Lawyers for the embattled lawyer Pecori in Mount Vernon gave their closing arguments now as that issue goes to the jury. His corruption trial now goes to the jury, and DMV makes ready for a green light surge of immigrants seeking New York licenses. Those stories coming up right now. But first, we do have to go to the weather. And once again, it is 29 degrees, and that's cold, folks. If you haven't figured that one out, it's going to get up to 35 today. Today, though, sunshine through high, thin clouds, the temperature leveling off at about 32. Tonight, mostly cloudy. The temperature will be 28. The wind out of the south at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Friday, tomorrow, cloudy with rain late in the day. The temperature will be 45. The wind will be out of the east-southeast 5 to 10. Saturday, we're sorry to say it'll rain early, then remaining cloudy. The high 55. The overnight low will be 41 degrees. And if you hope for sun Sunday, you'll have a little bit. Partly sunny and breezy. The high will be 47 degrees. The overnight low 32. And well, that's the weather. And the weather is brought to you, as you know, exclusively by our friends at United Hebrew, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Let's get into those stories now as we pass through 6, and let me double check with my glasses here, 6:18. A Bernard Carter college student was stabbed. I'll hear about that one. Was stabbed to death in an Upper Manhattan park by a group of men who had tried to rob her on Wednesday. Freshman Tessa Majors, 18, was discovered by a school security guard inside Morningside Park near West 116th Street at around 5:30 p.m. She had been beaten and stabbed by a group of 3 or 4 men at the base of some stairs there. And it's just a terrible story. And the president of the college, Sean Lee Bialak, said Tessa was just beginning her journey at Barnard and in life. That investigation continues. Kind of look at how many people get mugged near Morningside Park. Something's just not right. And our programs today are sponsored by Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne and Kahn, pluginvirtualreality.com, and Dominic's Fine Cigars. Let's get back to the other stories. Embattled coach Louis DiRienzo has resigned as head football coach and teacher at New Rochelle High School. This from several sources today. In a joint written statement, the coach said, after much thought, I have decided to resign from my position as head coach and teacher at New Rochelle High School. I'm proud of my students and team's accomplishments on and off the football field these past 28 years. I will always be rooting for the Huguenots and the New Rochelle community. I thank the community for its support over the years. And wow. The school has been tight-lipped about what caused DiRienzo's resignation from coaching duties, but DiRienzo's family speculated originally his dismissal stemmed from helping a distressed student who was also a relative leave the school campus without going through the proper channels. He was also facing allegations from the Yonkers Police Department that a student accused him of unlawful contact back in the 1980s. One parent and former student of DiRienzo told News 12, one of our contributors, that, quote, he was a terrific human being. He was a tremendous asset to our community. I am personally horrified and sick from this thing. Now, some of the things we know and some of the things we don't know, I think it's pretty clear from that. He was, of course, originally suspended back on the 14th, or not suspended officially, but reassigned because of the incident with the sick student. And when he was reassigned, school district leaders had declined to discuss it, but members of the family brought the issue out. Now, whether the Yonkers police investigation affected DiRienzo's situation in New Rochelle, no one can be sure of, and what Yonkers police discovered in their investigation. Likewise, who will become the new head coach of the New Rochelle football team? That remains to be answered. We suspect, but we don't know, that DiRienzo will coach again elsewhere. At 9 o'clock, Bob Cox, who has stayed on top of this story through his news outlet, Talk of the Sound, will be with us. It is 6:21. A lot of news today, and we have it for you. With its own bank account and separate oversight from the city finance department, that's Mount Vernon, the Board of Water Supply is a tempting source of funds. So opens the piece in the Journal News. That's about all state prosecutors and the defense would agree on as they wrapped up the corruption trial of the city's former top lawyer, Lawrence Porcari. He is accused of steering $360,000 in water funds to criminal defense lawyers of former Mayor Thomas. Now, those of you who listen to this program regularly and follow the story, some of it will seem familiar. To the defense, the Water Department provided necessary alternative funding in a dysfunctional city government where bills often went unpaid. To the prosecution, it was a slush fund. To Lawrence Porcari, the Corporation Counsel of the City of Mount Vernon, it was a tap, and this is what the prosecutors say, it was a tap he could turn on through false statements and fraud when he needed to get funds flowing. This according to Assistant Attorney General Megan Powers. But defense lawyer Stephen Lewis called the case a political prosecution that targeted Thomas Porcari's boss. When the mayor was not indicted, Porcari became collateral damage. Lewis agreed that it made no sense to single out his client. And he said he never made a dollar, a dime, a penny. He benefited nothing from anything he did in this case. The lawyer went on to say he was going to put his career, his reputation, his freedom at stake based on not getting anything out of it, ? Powers countered that whether or not Porcari profited was not relevant to the theft allegations. The defendant doesn't have to pocket the money. His actions wrongfully caused it to go into the pockets of another. The jury will begin deliberating Thursday morning after getting legal instructions from Westchester County Judge David Zuckerman. Pardon me. Now, Porcari is charged with second-degree grand larceny, a first-degree corruption of government, defrauding the government, and 4 counts of offering a false statement for filing related to memos that he sent to the Water Department to get the funds that are needed. Now, on the defense's case, what they're saying is, and they don't deny, that the Water Department was often used to pay bills, as they said, and here's the quote here, it had its own budget, bank account that are not under the control of the city finance department. The Thomas administration frequently went to the Water Department because city controller Deborah Reynolds was not paying bills. It was Porcari's interpretation of the city charter that the city should be responsible to pay the mayor's criminal defense bills that set the scheme in motion. That is what the prosecution says. Very interesting case. This is a case that could go either way. I think the biggest, when you look through the whole story and you dig a little deeper, I think the biggest issue there is the nature of the memos that went to the Water Department head who took a deal. And his point is that the use of the funds was not what he understood it to be, or at least the reasons for it. Wow. I'm going to vote for acquittal on this one, but who knows? I don't know enough about the law with respect to this, but that's just the way I see it. I don't know if it's beyond a reasonable doubt, or for that matter, what is the term? A preponderance of the evidence. It is 6:25 on Monday. Immigrants living illegally in New York State will be allowed to apply for driver's licenses, but some DMV offices haven't received everything they need to implement the new state law. This in LoHud and News 12 today. Orange County Clerk Annette Rabbit, who runs the county's 4 DMVs there, says some required equipment has not yet arrived. Now, immigrants in the country illegally who apply will need to prove their name, date of birth, and New York address as part of the state's green light law. There's going to be some reluctance to do that, I suspect. The DMV will also accept foreign passports, foreign marriage and divorce records, and foreign birth certificates. And immigration advocates say more licensed drivers on the road will make them safer and help prevent immigrants from being pipelined into deportation proceedings when pulled over by police. The longest serving member, I know we have a call, but we're not quite ready to take calls yet, but if someone wants to hold, we'll let you hold. The longest-serving member of the Westchester County Legislature will join the administration of County Executive George Latimer on Monday. Now, this is an interesting case because, as we understood, when Mike Kaplowitz resigned, he was going back to his old job, getting out of government. Guess not. Legislator Mike Kaplowitz, a Somers Democrat and former legislature chairman, is taking a new role as Deputy Commissioner of the County Department of Environmental Facilities, an agency that oversees sewage treatment and recycling plants. Kaplowitz, who has a background in financial planning, is tasked with an analysis of the county's 7 sewage treatment plants and 13 sewer districts. Now, Kaplowitz served with Latimer on the County Board of Legislators when he first took office, and he called him a mentor. But again, just to be fair, the information that we inferred when he left is that he was going back to the private sector. Well, I guess not for long. Authorities in Rockland County are ramping up patrols around Jewish-owned businesses in the Hudson Valley following Tuesday's deadly shooting in New Jersey. Investigators in Jersey City say 3 innocent civilians and a police detective were killed in the shootout. Jersey City Mayor Stephen Fulop says CCTV shows shooters targeting their attack on people inside a kosher grocery store. Police have not confirmed that it was a targeted attack. Now, Ramapo Police Chief Brad Wider tells News 12, who gave us this story, that his department is taking the New Jersey shooting seriously. A Hamilton County man was shot and killed after attacking a state trooper with a hatchet. This happened on Tuesday night at the man's home, according to New York State Police, and reported in LoHud today. According to state police, troopers were dispatched shortly before 9 p.m. to a home on Old Pensacola Road in the town of Arietta for a person experiencing mental health issues, and the rest evolved from here. Now, actually, I put these stories out of order, but just a little note. I know we have a caller on hold. We'll get to you after the local news in just a few minutes. One of the assailants of the deadly attack at a Jersey City kosher market has been linked to what is called the Black Hebrew Israelites movement. This out of CNN, the New York Times, and other outlets. The shooter, David Ed Anderson, appears to have a connection to the movement, but the extent of its involvement in that group is unclear, according to a law enforcement official. Now, the Black Hebrew Israelites movement is best known for its confrontational brand of street preaching in urban areas, but has a complex history with sects and branches splintering over theological and leadership disputes. Scholars say what unites most Black Israelites is the belief that African Americans are the true descendants of biblical Jews, though some members have expressed anti-Semitic sentiments in the past. So you figure that one out. And this sad story, as we know, a village-wide vigil is planned in Pleasantville on this coming Sunday evening as the community continues to come to terms with the tragedy. Following last week's murder-suicide, several houses of worship in the village will open their doors for silent prayers from 7 to 8 p.m. in remembrance of the Liu family. John Kai Tom, Liu, 46, killed his wife Dorothy, 42, son Tennyson, 7, and daughter Adeline, 4, before killing himself inside their house at Romer Drive. The Mother Mary Gregorius Church of St. John's Episcopal said the community has done a nice job in honoring the family. And again, that vigil will take place on Sunday night. And that's the local news right now before we go to regional and national news. It is 6:30. The temperature is 29 and it's going to get up to 35 today, and that's about all she will write. For those of you just joining us today, sunshine through high thin clouds. The temperature will be 32. The wind will be out of the northwest 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tonight mostly cloudy. The temperature will be 28 degrees. The wind south out of the southeast 5 to 10. Now tomorrow, cloudy with rain late in the day, the temperature 45. The wind will be east-southeast 5 to 10. Saturday, rain early, then remaining cloudy. The high will be 55 degrees. And of course, the weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated senior care facility located right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And let's see what the caller has to say. Good morning. You're on
Good morning,
Radio
Bob.
Westchester.
How are you?
Who do I have?
Who do you have? Who do you think you have? Who do you think couldn't wait to bust open the phones this morning?
Oh, good morning, Anthony. How are you? What's going on?
Well, Bob, I want to talk about the hearing yesterday.
Yes.
The first thing I want to say before I get into the hearing, I want everybody to notice the difference in the decorum that took place yesterday from what's been happening in the House.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was civil. Everybody took their shots at the other side, but it was done civilly.
Yes.
No voices raised, no arguments, no yelling out, no gavels being pounded to cut people off, nobody being said, that's out of question, I'm not going to allow this. Everything that wanted to come in came in. Every question that needed to be asked, that everybody felt they needed to ask, was able to be asked. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way a hearing is supposed to work.
Go ahead.
Okay. Now, I want to drive a point home to you, and I'm going to equate it to something that has touched you as closely as anything can touch you, maybe equal to, but I'm going to leave it just a little bit below family.
Go ahead.
Okay? Deskovich.
Yes.
Okay. We all know that a DA can indict a ham sandwich, correct?
Even a sausage sandwich, sure.
Okay. So what the IG said yesterday was basically that to open up an investigation, it's basically on the same level as a DA getting an indictment.
Mm-hmm.
It's so low, it can be done.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what follows is the investigation and whether that proceeds with integrity or not and by the rules. Now, in Deskovich's case, there was DNA that was denied to be brought in that would have exonerated him.
That is
That's
correct.
why he served whatever it was, 16 or 17 years, an unbelievable amount of time in jail for nothing. Now, the FBI had 17 serious problems, as noted by the IG, and actually tampered with an email, changing that email to mean exactly the opposite of the way it was written. Now, the first Pfizer application was denied because while they say it was, quote, a close call, they felt there wasn't enough, and it should be noted that the Steele dossier was not included in that first application.
Mm-hmm.
Second application included the Steele dossier, and wow and behold, we have the Pfizer warrant. Yet the IG said that the FBI knew from the get-go it was nothing more than political op research, and it was not based in fact. And later on, when it was revealed that in the email was changed. Mm-hmm. So I pose this question to you, Bob. Mm-hmm. What's worse, a foreign government interfering in our elections or our own government interfering in our elections?
That is a question I'll have to ponder a little bit. Probably, certainly our own government. But I think it's like any other issue, and I'm not defending it because, as you know, I forwarded you yesterday the fact that your FISA theories were coming to pass. It's one aspect of it. But having said that, did he not also say, though, that it was not overall politically motivated? Because certainly the FBI.
No, that's not what he said. That's not what he said. Did you watch it? Did you read it?
I read it.
He said he said the investigation,
right.
as it started, it did not start as being politically motivated. They came to realize that there were political operatives later on.
So, Anthony, what you're suggesting is that because that was, and clearly it was flawed, I'm not going to argue with you on that. What you're saying is, ergo, the whole investigation should go away.
That's not what I'm saying, Bob.
I'm asking you what you're saying.
What I'm saying to you is just what I said to you.
No, I know,
I'm
but you're
equating it to Deskovich.
No,
if Deskovich gets vindicated, why shouldn't those who were accused in this operation be vindicated?
Because one of the fundamental differences. Now, if we're in a court of law, and ultimately, and I think you suggested,
and we will be when it goes to the Senate.
Yeah. When these people, well, I can talk to you about that, and I think that you'll probably like what I have to say. But when we look at this, here's the fundamental difference between Deskovich. Now, it doesn't mean that the verdicts, if you will, if there are verdicts to be delivered, won't be different. But we were able to prove definitively that Jeff Deskovich didn't do it. But for any people to say that the Russians did not hack, which you have never said, by the way, that they did not interfere with the election, and to say that there were people who worked for Trump who didn't have contact with these people, we know those things happen, or at least the evidence still points to that. That is the fundamental difference.
And again, if anybody who watched the hearings yesterday, they would have seen that no Republican on that dais, denied anything that you just said.
No, I know that.
And they actually admitted.
I know that.
But Bob, you know it, but you don't say it.
Well, I was about to.
So it appears one-sided.
No, well, I was about to. In fact, Anthony, I have notes in front of me. There were 17 times, at least 17 things that the Inspector General, I can't talk this morning, that the Inspector General found that were very troubling and that need to be looked into with the process. And one of the things that I inferred from it, and I'm glad you asked me that because you'll see where I'm going, is that for even though the Inspector General found that the process, or rather that it was not in its initial stages politically motivated, he found things about the FBI that are very troubling and a lot more troubling than I thought. And it makes it a fair question whenever they launch an investigation. Do they do what they did with the FISA warrants? Do they stack the deck? Do they reorganize the information? So yes, absolutely. I understand what you're saying. And I came prepared to mention that.
And I understand what you're doing. You're raising a question, but I think it's been proven that they do. And if they do it at this level, think about what they do on the lower level.
Well, that's the biggest
oversight.
no, and that's the consistency that, quite frankly, I'm proud of. I'm very concerned about that. Extremely concerned about that. So what we have now,
anyone who watched those hearings yesterday, I can tell you right now, I know I didn't sleep as comfortable as I did the night before.
I have to agree with you. I am troubled by some of their methods and practices in general, and I'm sure it just doesn't apply to the President of the United States. If someone's going to go before, and that's why I forwarded you that. You ask about fairness often, and I think we need to go on the record. I'm the one that forwarded you that. You've been saying that for 2 years about that FISA warrant. And then it came out that while again, I understood their pursuit of the investigation and I stand by that, the fact of the matter is that they put their finger on the freaking scale. And I
listen, you didn't hear me say that the investigation didn't begin improperly.
No, not you personally.
I said from day one that the Russians interfered with our elections. I have no problem with
Anthony,
that.
it's not about you.
But let me finish, Bob. I'm not
going anywhere.
But like as I said from the get-go, the only reason that this made a difference this time is because Trump won. Because foreign governments have been interfering in our elections for decades, as we have in others. So it is what it is. They just do it better than we do. And because Trump won, this was the hook that they needed to try and overturn the election. And this is being proved out day by day. And I can't wait for Durham's report because it's going to take the IG's report even further.
Well, I think, though, we need to remember what that report also says. I think one of the things I always defer to, Anthony, and I think from your side, where you need to look at your position on this, and I think you have been fair, you don't deny that the president did a lot of the things that he said that he is accused to have done.
I've said from day one he pushes the envelope. There's no doubt about it. Does he cross the line? I don't know if he completely crosses it, puts a toe over, half a foot, whatever you want to call it. But he definitely pushes the envelope. I don't doubt that. But you know what? But this is what bothers me, Bob. Because if you or anybody else,
by the way, I need to restate,
in their right
640.
mind, don't think that envelope gets pushed behind the scenes. The only difference is he does it out in front.
Well, we're certainly learning that. But he also, in my view, and I'm sticking to my guns here, he seems to have contempt for a lot of the institutions. But what's coming out in this case, and what I came prepared to talk about today, while he shouldn't be calling them slime balls or whatever he used, scum.
And you know what? I'll agree that I don't like the way he references people and institutions. But to a certain point, do you think he's been vindicated?
No. I think it's to a certain point. I'm sorry. No. Let me find my language, Anthony. To a certain point, yes. But I still believe, and I go back to this, the fundamental issue here is going to be, but process does matter. The fundamental issue is going to be, did he or did he not do some of the things he's accused of? But I want to go on to something else in the interest of time.
No, I disagree with you 100%.
Go ahead.
The fundamental matter is we have lost total confidence in the FBI.
Yeah, and I've lost total confidence in the president, so we're even there.
That's fine. And you have, and listen, you can do. I'm not denying you your beliefs. Okay, it's been made long before this investigation ever began. So you're just being consistent.
Well, sort of.
Okay?
But I want to go to
listen,
something
I
else.
lost confidence in. Go ahead.
No, I want to go someplace else. If you're fair, and you are, I believe that you are. If you're a fair listener, I don't believe the president should be removed from office. And to that end, and something that you said a little earlier, 2 GOP senators are already on the record. And I think the Democrats are walking into a minefield, and they may even lose seats in the Congress. That's what I became prepared to talk about today. But since you mentioned it, 2 GOP senators say McConnell will move to acquit Trump, not really dismiss the charges. And I think that's a wise move, because apropos of the stuff that the IG came up with, which, by the way, let me go back to that for a moment. He's been eviscerated, and you were using stuff that the IG said, and rightly so, to point out how Trump may not have gotten a fair deal. But yet everything on the other side will say everything that he says, they wanted to dismiss it and throw it out until they finally got him in yesterday and saw, hey, this was a fairly balanced report. So all I'm saying is I reject when people dismiss this stuff out of hand, and perhaps I do that myself too. The Attorney General here, the Inspector General, here you are defending him, rightly so, and bringing out stuff that is fair and accurate, but he was dismissed out of hand before he came on, and now we're going to accept stuff that he said. Not you, Anthony, but this is the polarization that we have. But I wanted to get to this other thing. Because,
well, Bob, how about where's your fair and balance? How about the Democrats now dismissing 398 pages of the 400
Well, they've got no right to do that.
Focusing on the first 3 pages.
They've got no right.
Don't say it, damn it.
Yeah, I can't say everything.
You never balance your comments.
Anthony, one of the things I don't have to do if I see somebody rob a store, and I believe that he robbed a store, and I think that he may get off because of technicalities, I'm not going to deny that he robbed the store. I think Donald Trump's hurting the country. Okay, so I can't come off that and say, in the interest of fairness, look over a document and find 2 or 3 things that disagree with that premise. You got to give me some preponderance of evidence. You did today, and you're absolutely right. But I need to go to something else. This is important, and I want to get your reaction to it because we probably agree on this. Where the Democrats have absolutely screwed up is McConnell is going to move to vote right away. He's already counting heads. So here is what's going to happen, folks. And the people who are never Trumpers and Trump haters are not going to be happy this morning. Once that they acquit Trump, he's legally acquitted. This is done. It's over. And they can go on and they can yell and they can scream and they can squeal. But by going to impeachment without a thorough, and this is something that I haven't even gotten to, I don't think the Democrats have done a thorough investigation. I think in their effort to get this thing out and to get this thing out in the voters' heads, and this is a huge backfire, they should have done more thorough investigation. And now after some of these chinks in the armor, the president's definitely going to get acquitted, and it will be like Lords. I don't know if he'll be reelected, but he's got a real good shot. And you can't go and bring charges again double jeopardy, I'm sure, even applies in the case of a president of the United States. In my view, the Democrats have screwed up. And I think Trump is going to get acquitted, and it's going to be just like it was with Clinton. And in Clinton's case, we know he did it. They just didn't rise to the high whatever it is, high crimes and misdemeanors. I needed to mention that. But yes,
you make your bed and then you sleep in it.
Absolutely,
that's the bottom line. Okay?
Absolutely.
Now let me say this.
Go ahead.
This is the problem. This is the problem I had with impeachment from the get-go. Besides the FISA warrant.
Go ahead.
Okay. There is no reason that this investigation had to come to an end as soon. Yes, the president has exerted executive privilege, but that has not been challenged to its fullest extent. It has not gone to the Supreme Court.
God forgive me. Okay? I fully agree with you.
They should have gone to whatever exhaustive steps they needed until they were all eliminated. Now, if the Supreme Court had decided eventually with the president, then they needed to go to an impeachment on what they have.
Hey, if
they feel that that's what they needed to do.
Anthony,
but without those steps, without exhausting every process, every step, going over every hurdle along the way, this is a shame.
Anthony, I wish you could see me because I'm smiling. Do you remember the line in The Godfather when someone mentioned something that he knew about The Godfather, and Tom Hagen, he goes to Tom Hagen, he goes, salute. Well, I'm doing that to you now because the Democrats wanted to get this out so soon that they should have waited to get the former the guy that everybody wants to testify, Giuliani, the people from the White House. I absolutely agree with you, and I think that this was a fatal mistake on two fronts. Yes, it would have been till after the election, and that probably would have been better for the country. I'd rather see this decided by election, number one, and number two, but they simply wanted to get their story out there for the purpose of the election rather than truly impeach the guy. And not only that,
Bob. Understand something. Even if they follow the procedure to its inevitable end, and even if it would have culminated after the election, okay, just the fact that the president's going in with that hanging over his head could have been enough to get him out of office. But no. See, this is the problem. Everybody wants to have it. They think what they perceive to be a slam dunk. So we got to get it. We got 2020, 2020, 2020. Guess what? You skipped a few steps. You shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah, they did. You know what?
You dug the hole, lay in it, and don't bitch.
And you know what? Nancy Pelosi, as people know, even people who don't like her, she's a pretty shrewd politician. They should have listened to her. Listen, stay right there. I got one other story if you want to hear it.
That's the tail wagging the dog.
647.
Because now she's succumbed to the extremes of her party.
Well, yes, but that's my point. Originally, though, her instincts were on the money. They should have listened. I got to do another national story, so you may as well hear it because I'm trying to manage time here at 6:48. The Fed, for those of you who invest, and Anthony and I don't have that kind of money, but the Fed leaves low rates alone and sees no move in the future. Chairman Jerome Powell made clear Wednesday that the Federal Reserve is prepared to keep its benchmark interest rate very low through at least next year. And again, I think Anthony and I just called it. My next story was going to be some of the takeaways on both sides.
Can I comment on that story real quick?
Yeah, sure, please do.
Yeah, well, the story came out yesterday. I forgot one of the business journals or something, that the economy soaring and everything that's happening is not Trump's. It's just an extension of what Obama started.
Well, they're going to twist it. Hey, I got one for you. This is a kicker on the national level. Are you ready for this? How would you like to have this happen to you? Police out in, I guess it's, well, it doesn't matter really. It's out in Cleveland. You'll forgive me. So they pull over a truck which had barrels of raw pork shoulder in it. It was a trailer truck. He crossed over the line. He didn't signal. They found $3 million in cash. $3 million in one of the pork barrels.
You know the most telling part of that story?
What?
Where it happened.
Cleveland?
Yep.
Why? How do you make that?
Well, think about it.
My brain's...
What state is it in?
Ohio.
Yeah, okay. Midwest?
Yeah. Well, you know where the truck was headed, they believe, Florida. They think it was drug money. But could you imagine opening up a truck as a cop and finding $3 million, I get back in the truck and continue driving to Mexico.
I've seen some of these things where they stop vehicles along the road and stuff, and the checkpoints come. They got them inside the tires. They got them under the seat. You can't believe it. They pull a whole dashboard out. There's none behind the gauges. They look like the gauges in the front. It's all either drugs or money stashed in the back.
I want to get the money. They can keep the drugs. When we come back, we're going to take a break. Anthony, thank you very much. Good job.
You got it.
When we come back, we're going to look at Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred's response. Boy, is he getting heat over the idea of closing 42 minor league baseball franchises. Baseball's been caught with its hand in the greed cookie jar. When we come back. Good morning once again. Let's see where we're at. It is 29 degrees, clear skies across Westchester County. It's going to get up to 35 today. The average temperature, though, is going to settle in at about 32. It's a cold but clear day across the neighborhood. I sound like Mr. Rogers, I know. I'm told that's a great movie, by the way. We all, I guess, have to go out and see it. Welcome to Good Morning. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester, the station at the train station. I will be ensconced in there again tomorrow morning, so you'll see our lights on, and it being a very busy case, all of our remote work here upstate is coming to a conclusion, and it's working pretty well, all things considered. We're pretty happy with it. Now, going back to the weather tomorrow, if only I could find where I put it. So many stories, so little time. We're going to have some rain a little later on. We'll come back with the full weather forecast in just a little bit. The top of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, pluginvirtualreality.com, and Dominic's Fine Cigars. And, of course, United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit UHGC.com. Now, taking a look at this story before we go into the full top of the hour, Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred responds to blowback over the controversial plan to contract the minor leagues. Now, he spent time at the winter meetings on Wednesday doing damage control. He said, let me say this has been portrayed, and he's backpedaling, been portrayed as a decision that has been made, and he said, bristling against national outrage regarding the restructuring, which would remove the Staten Island Yankees, for those of you who go there, the Binghamton Rumble Ponies, where the Mets up in upstate New York, where they have a baseball team. It is by no means a fait accompli. I hope that minor league baseball, which has taken the position that they're not willing to discuss anything but the status quo or any changes that would provide upgrades for inadequate facilities. Well, folks, the interesting thing is, evidently what he's saying, and he's saying it in spin language, is that this was a trial balloon, but it got a pin stuck in it. Now, as always, there are two sides to the story. Now, most of the minor league ballparks, now let's just take the Staten Island Yankees. I've actually played in an alumni baseball game there. My arm almost fell off, but it is one of the most beautiful low-level minor league ballparks, not in the country. It is built on the shoreline, looking out into New York Harbor, with Brooklyn across the way, with just somewhere. It would be a major league ballpark if it was big enough. I mean, it's tiny, but it's an absolutely beautiful facility. So where's that coming from? But to be fair, there are places in rural America where the ballparks are falling apart, where the showers are falling apart, that need to be upgraded. So if they want to go into partnership with minor league baseball and not use the falling facilities as a pretext, that would be fine, because some facilities needed to be upgraded. But boy, the Staten Island, yeah, you got to go to that ballpark one day. What you can do, and it's easy to do, by the way. What you can do, and this, it's right next to the ferry. So you take a train down to the tip of Manhattan, you take a free ferry ride. You go across the river and you walk to the ballpark. It's absolutely beautiful. You look, it's along the same lines as the Major League ballpark out in San Francisco, where it sits right there, overlooking New York Harbor. Oh, please. Now, another thing about minor league sports, I happen to be in minor league sports now, for those of you who are sports now, because it's a much better buy. Go see the Double A Trenton Yankees. Go up to Binghamton. When it comes to hockey, you can't, it's better than Major League other than the names that you see, because it's only a hair under, and the only difference, the speed is the same, the passing skills are the same, the shooting is as hard. It's only when you get into the short game, you don't have the great highly skilled goal scorers, because they just now, since hockey's a lot easier to play, not speed wise, but physically, they get some 19-year-old who can score and they call them up. And then you see them lose games the way the Rangers do, because they're not really full-fledged major league pros, but they don't have to be anymore. So what you get in the minors is a quality of hockey that is ridiculous. Same thing in baseball. I challenge any of you to go to a double or a triple A game. And Major League Baseball cringes when people talk like this, but I continue to. You won't notice the difference except the names on the back. You will not. And so I'm a huge supporter of minor league sports. And for those people who live in cities where minor league sports does very well, Rochester, New York, Syracuse, New York, to talk about our home heath, right up in Bridgeport, Connecticut, Utica, down in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Lehigh Valley. Even you go out to San Diego, there's a minor league team in San Diego that draws 9,000 and 10,000, a hockey team. What I'm saying to you is, now looking at the other side of it, where Major League Baseball does have an expense beef and makes it hard on players, is travel. They may need, now if they came out and said they wanted to re-scramble teams, and hockey's done this, and baseball's done this before, where instead of having a 12-hour bus ride, you cut it down to 4 or 5 or 3, or even closer, so that teams don't have to spend as much money on hotels and gasoline and wearing out the players. That makes sense. You can move teams around. But again, you got to compensate the owners. You can't take all their equity away. So all that is fair and good. But anyway, the bottom line is, Rob Manfred and the other people, and greedy and dishonest in many ways, and more a spin marketing organization, Major League Baseball, you got caught with your hands in the greedy cookie jar. But to be fair, it was empty when you did it. You just want to see, I wonder, I'm a cat. I'm going to sneak into the fridge. I got the door open. I'm going to see if mom or anybody around here checks. Oops. No. I was just sniffing around. You got caught, Mr. Manfred. What an embarrassing couple of decades for such a wonderful sport, our national pastime. They look the other way at the Ped scandal. They know they have a scandal with cheating, probably. Do you think the Houston Astros are the only team that cheats? Look, I don't know if these things go on in sports and they go on in life. Just handle them openly. It reminds me very much of a great brokerage firm I once worked for. And they've been sold now, so I can go there. It was a wonderful firm, and it was founded by this guy, Charlie Merrill, who actually was the first person to say, hey, it isn't only the elite that should trade securities, it's the average person. And the phrase he used was bring Wall Street to Main Street. And for years, we used to have this motto that the customer's interests come first. We really did. And we were brought up and trained that way. I know I ran the training department, or a big chunk of it. We were trained that way, and we trained people that way. And the secondary thing is, we never want to be in the newspapers for something negative. And if and when we do, the first thing we do is openly and honestly put it out there and confront it. And we all lived that way. That was the way we ran. And then, and you'll forgive me, because there's a bigger, larger part of that business called the institutional business. They deal with governments and they deal with corporations. And of course, it involves what we call capital markets. And it's very, very important business. It keeps the country flowing. It's a wonderful business. But it is a business so steeped in money and greed. For example, the numbers are astronomical. You do a deal, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. For those of you who once saw the movie about Oh God, I got to remember. Great book in the '80s, Barbarians at the Gate. There were actually people in meetings. So just stay here, stay another half a million dollars. We'll stay here for another half hour. We'll give you $100 million. That's the kinds of money we're talking about. Anyway, when those people, we bought another company called White Weld in the late '70s. Great institutional firm, capital markets firm. And over the next 20 years, their mentality, which are left unchecked, folks, is just incredible. But it was left unchecked. And somehow they attacked the people who had that. It's not unlike politics. They, in a sense, politically attacked the people who had that original view. They attacked the people who had that sensibility that will take care of our employees and started calling it Mother Merrill. They attacked the fact that we cared about small investors for whom they had contempt. And eventually they intimidated, destroyed, or if you will, marginalized the old guard, and they took over. And he shall go nameless, he was a decent guy, and one chairman who was intimidated by it wound up giving away the store. Fine. But then all of a sudden we started having these incidents. And one of them most markedly was one out in San Diego, Orange County, California, where we were part of that county because of certain advice given. We were part of that county going bankrupt. And so instead of saying, yeah, this is all we did, we fought it. And we even fought it when we got to the point where the judge was so incensed at my old company that he wanted to do something unprecedented, well, relatively unprecedented. I mean, it happens, but it's rare. He wanted the information that was discussed about in the grand jury made public, and my old firm went all the way to the Supreme Court to fight it. And they were successful in fighting it because the law was on their side, but morality was not. Anyway, I use that as one example. Now, are all people who do institutional business bad? No. No, of course not. In fact, the majority aren't. But there's so much money to be made. So much. I mean, you see all these people that aren't actors or baseball pitchers running around in Maseratis and going out to Long Island in their mansions. Well, most of those are really Wall Street people. And that's all fair and well. They earn it. The risk is there. They keep the economy going. But when you have that much sugar, you're going to draw insects. At any rate, we will end the story rather abruptly because Major League Baseball should keep this in mind because it's become so disingenuous. And I hope all the Major League sports don't go this way. But ultimately, that firm died. And it was one of the firms that died after the mortgage-backed security scandal. Because once you get into those kinds of habits, once you start cutting those kinds of corners, once you start being dishonest about money, once you start putting the interests of your firm, and you always have to have them there, ahead of your clients and ahead of what's right, well, needless to say, this wonderful company was bought out. And the best part of it still exists, by the way. Bank of America bought it, and I don't know how it's run now. Don't have any idea. But this great firm, it was called Merrill Lynch, one of the greatest companies on the planet for so long. It was devoured by the very people who were in charge of its care. So don't take this stuff lightly. When you see people who are greedy beginning to cut those kinds of moral corners, it doesn't end well. So baseball, maybe that's a terrible analogy, but when I see the kinds of things that you do, and it's a shame because there's no better sport. I can't afford to go, won't go. Last time I went to a Major League Baseball game, I sat so high up that I had to go back and get my flying instructing books to figure out how I was going to get down. I found no joy in it. I found I had to park, I had to walk, I had to pay for parking, I had to walk forever, I had to climb up 1,200 million stairs, and the baseball players looked like ants. Whereas the last time I went to see the Trenton Thunder, I sat 3 rows behind the plate. I saw pitchers throwing 95 miles an hour. I talked with the scouts. It was easy to get my food, and I got out of the parking lot and still got home at a reasonable hour. The last time I went to a minor league hockey game, I sat behind the glass for $20. $20. and soared the second best league in the world with players at the same skill level as the NHL, but for the ability to shoot the puck just a little, not harder, just to release a little bit better. So you better be careful, Major League Baseball, because there's a better product out there that you're trying to screw, at least a better product for the money. Remember, folks, your basics, for those of you who take a business course, what value do you get? Do you want to pay $150 to go to a baseball game and $18 hot dogs? Or do you want to pay $20 to go to a game that doesn't look any different that you can take your family? Who's providing you with the better value? There, I said it. I kicked the butt of Major League Baseball. I think I did. And they deserved it. All right, let's look straight ahead. I don't even know what time it is. It is 7:05, and we need to reset, and that we will do. It is Thursday, December 12th, 2019. Thank you for listening to Radio Westchester. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. It's 29 degrees, getting to 35 today. And some of the stories we're looking at for you today: the embattled new Rochelle coach that has finally resigned, the football coach, after the issue with his helping a relative, but not going through channels. And again, we don't even get into what was going on with that young woman and where some people have been unfair. So what if he broke a few rules? Well, what if the girl had died? But also, he was an icon. He was beloved by many. So it's a touching, heartbreaking story. And then an issue came out, and I actually felt for the coach on this one. It goes back to the 80s. Did he or did he not touch someone in a way he should not? And now he has resigned. He came to an agreement. One of the things we'll be talking with Bob Cox about at 9 o'clock is the story behind the story, what led to all this. Now, one of the things that Bob has always said is that when you have these kinds of agreements, mutual separation agreement, there's so many confidentiality elements to it that it's quite possible we'll never know. And that's going to be tough for people who love the coach, or for that matter, those few people, and they're still afraid to speak up, by the way. There's a very interesting undercurrent when it involves this coach. There are people willing to go off the record, and it needs to be said, and it needs to be said in the interest of fairness. There were people who felt he had too much power. There were people that felt he flaunted his power. And there were people that felt, even in the instance of helping this young lady, that he was trying to cover it up. And there are those who feel this way. They don't like to go on the record. And one of the reasons they don't like to go on the record is such was the influence and power of this beloved man. And I get that. And but you should know there's always another side to the story, and we wish him well. From the people I talk with, he really helped kids with their careers. He was a father figure. He taught them accountability. This cannot be dismissed. But rules are rules, and we wish him nothing but the best. Let's take a look now at the other big story here in Westchester, a story that we have been following so closely. Mr. Picari, and that is one of the, as the whole era of the Richard Thomas administration wound down, Lawrence Picari, rather, accused of steering $360,000 in water funds to criminal defense lawyers of former Mayor Richard Thomas. Now, here's how this thing rolled. One would think that it would be Richard Thomas that would be indicted, but he wasn't the one that falsified, or what they're saying is that he misrepresented the use of the funds when he went to the water department. However, what's not in dispute is that because bills weren't paid, and we get different stories on this. We talked to everyone. We talked to the people that were there. We talked to the old mayor, to the mayor, Richard Thomas, who's with us on occasion. And one group of people keeps insisting that the comptroller wouldn't pay bills that needed to be paid. Ergo, we went to, yes, openly, they'll tell you, and it came out in the court, we go to departments that we can control to pay bills. Now, that to me was fair and okay to do because you had a government out of control. And again, some people say, and we've suggested this, that perhaps the controller in that city, Miss Reynolds, was a hero, and that she didn't want to pay bills that the mayor wanted to pay because she felt they were inappropriate. But the other side of the story is that she didn't want to pay bills that would embarrass the mayor if she didn't have to. Now, to the mayor's credit, and people keep ignoring this, and to the mayor's credit, he went to a court and tried to get the comptroller to cooperate. The court directed the comptroller to cooperate. She still didn't cooperate, and the courts let her off the hook. Now, it's fair to say, now the mayor has said this, it's fair to say, I can't subscribe to this theory. I wouldn't know that everybody involved was a Democrat, and the Democrats were not happy about him. Who knows? But why the judge didn't enforce her order, we don't know. Why the New York State Comptroller did not, and I've seen the letters, did not come in and look at the books and records of the city as the mayor had requested. So that's all part of the background. But the other side of this story is this. So, okay, the mayor gets in trouble. Bakari interprets that, looking at the city charter, that the mayor is entitled to have his bills paid by the city. That may be right or wrong. That's a separate issue. So he goes once again to the water department, which, right, it was. Some people called it a slush fund. Was it you? Yeah. And maybe one day they'll find out it was all corrupt and that everything the mayor did there he should not have done. I don't know. They'll all go to jail. I don't know. But he felt that he should pay those bills out of that. So this is going to distill down, though, to the part of the case that says he put forward false records, that his way of justifying the payments was not accurate as to what they were used for. That's what it's going to boil down to, because everyone kind of agrees. I'm getting a call here. Everyone kind of agrees. I'm sorry if I missed that call, and I will call back, please, and I will get to you. So the Bakari case, it went to the jury yesterday, and it's all going to hinge on those records. It certainly can hinge, and because I think he went on appeal on the use of the money at the water department. And sooner or later, someone is going to put Deborah Reynolds in the dock, not to accuse her of anything, but just please have a conversation with her. And let's establish, did the mayor really not pay the bills? Did the mayor really not want to document stuff? And if that's the case, well, then the mayor, even though he's out of office, he will have to answer for that. All right, another story that we're looking at, and this is a story that maybe one of the callers that's on the line will answer. This came as a surprise to me. Now, very well-respected guy. I thought he was a great legislator. Some of the Democrats were not crazy about him, Mike Kaplowitz, because he sided with Rob Astorino on many issues. He retired, said he was done with politics, moved on, was going back to his rather successful, or so we thought, financial business. But lo and behold comes this story. The longest-serving member of the Westchester County Legislature will join the administration of County Executive George Latimer on Monday. Legislator Mike Kaplowitz, a Somers Democrat and former legislature chairman, is taking a new role as Deputy Commissioner of the County Department of Environmental Facilities, an agency that oversees sewage treatment and recycling plants. Well, good for him. Charlie Brown, you are and were a good man. He was a great guest. But this, what I'm raising, and just simply raising the question, I don't know, this flies in the face of the fact that he was ready to get out of the biz and move on. But he's entitled, certainly, to private life, and a story that's really regional but broken-hearted. And we are going to turn a microscope into Morningside Park and see how many people are mugged there. But a Barnard College student was stabbed to death in an Upper Manhattan park by a group of men who had tried to rob her on Wednesday. Freshman Tessa Majors, 18-year-old kid, folks, was discovered by a school security guard inside Morningside Park near West 116th Street and Morningside Drive at 5:30 p.m. on that day. That's Wednesday. She'd been beaten and stabbed by a group of 3 or 4 men. Good God. Morningside Park. It's not the first time that I've read about that park and these things. That is troubling. And of course, on a national level, yesterday, the Inspector General gave ammunition to both sides to continue their fight. On one side saying that this was not a politically motivated investigation, and on the other side pointing some 17 issues where he felt that the FBI was behaving, putting their finger on the scale, at least in the pursuit of original things, not politically driven, but simply as a manner of operation. And again, that's the way we can broadly put it. Now, we're going to go to that call in just a moment, but first, let's take a quick, not a quick look, but a full look at the weather. It's 29 right now, getting up to 35. Clear sky, sunshine through high thin clouds. The temperature will level off at 32 tonight, mostly cloudy. The temperature will be 28. Cloudy on Friday with rain late in the day. The temperature leveling off at about 45. And Saturday, rain early, then remaining cloudy. The high, 55. 5 degrees. And the weather's brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And this first half of the hour is brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, virtualreality.com. That's Plug-in Virtual Reality, the law firm of Payne and Kahn, and Aging Issues Radio, and their parent, Aging Issues Management. Let's go to the telephone. I do believe it's Mitch. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester.
Hi, it's Vince. How you
Oh,
doing?
it's Vince. How are you, sir? What's on your mind? What's going on?
Well, two things. The last thing you just spoke with the IG report,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Horowitz. He did not say that it was not politically motivated. What he did say was, and I believe it's a quote, that he found no testimonial or documentary evidence of political bias. In other words, they didn't find a memo saying, I hate Trump, let's screw him. And they didn't get any of the people that they interviewed, and they weren't able to interview everybody, to say, yes, we had bias against Trump. What he did say was that there were 17 rather remarkable failures on the part of the FBI.
Yes, he did.
Some of which, and he said, for which there were no good explanations were given. All of these so-called mistakes or errors all flowed against Trump. Now, if you know about rule of probability, what's the probability of 17 things happening and all of them going your way? Probably not good. So,
Well, isn't it?
judge from what
Go,
they
no, I'm
take.
sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But the interesting part of the testimony was when he said the standard needed to open up an FBI investigation is very low. So they opened up an FBI investigation and did some tapping or whatever on this guy, Carter Page, who apparently somebody from Australia said, I heard him talking at a bar how he talks with Russians and this and that. Well, based on that, they opened up an investigation. They got this secret FISA warrant to go after him. But then it was revealed by the Inspector General that this Steele report, which some say had really very little to do with the investigation, he said was a critical element of the FISA warrant, which had been proven to be false, he said. That the information was not credible.
I got a question for you. Hold on, because you're litigating the issue now. So I'm gonna cherry pick in reverse. This guy did say all these things yesterday, but his conclusion at the end, if I read it right, was that it wasn't initiated for political reasons. However, no, let me finish. Let me finish. That's
right.
Okay. It doesn't matter. Let me finish. I'm going to ask you something, and I just want an honest answer. So you don't think Carter? See, because you're rightfully attacking the process, and you're rightfully questioning some of these things. Okay, but I'm going to ask you a simple, fundamental question. Do you think why then did the president, before even this hearing, dismiss everything this guy said out of hand, call him names, dismiss the whole issue? Number one.
Because President Trump is not a friendly guy.
No, let me finish. Let me finish. And do you think that Carter Page and these people were just totally innocent and this is all manufactured and a hoax, as the president said?
Well, here's the piece that I was going to get to. After it was proven and shown by Mr. Horowitz that the FBI was fully aware when they went to get the FISA warrant renewed on the second, third, and fourth time, they were fully aware that the Steele dossier was completely unreliable and false.
Yes, of course he said that.
They used it anyway. They did not tell the judge in their new affidavits that it turns out that this is not reliable information, which they are obligated to do by law. And here's the important part. One of the lawyers on this...
Hold the phone. I'll get to that call. Hold on. I'm going to dismiss that call. Caller, wait, please. I want you to finish, all right? Go ahead. Hold on. I got some maintenance to do. Good God. What's wrong with this system? I'm going to ask you to call back in a little while. My guest came on a couple of minutes early, and I inadvertently hit the wrong button, but I did want to answer Vince a little bit. Here's the problem that we're running into, and guest, would you please wait there just a moment? That was my mistake. I hit the wrong button. One of the problems that I found about everybody who reads this report is they pick out of it what justifies their purpose. And on all these points of order and all these points of process, okay, people are questioning, and rightly so, the behavior of the FBI. Caller, where are we going here? Caller, I'm going to ask you to call back, please. I hope you're listening as well. But one of the problems is that they find stuff that vindicates their worldview, and then we move on. So people accept only one side of the report. This is after it was rejected. But one of the things I'm going to stick to my guns on here, folks, deny that this stuff happened. Deny that the president pushed forward with a quid pro quo. Denied that he's made decisions. Now, I don't think he should be removed of office. I think he's, hey, listen, caller, I'll block you if you don't listen to me, okay? And I'm about to block you. Wait, I'll get back to you. Okay, good morning. You're on Radio Westchester. We don't have anybody there now. I blocked everybody. Okay, that happens. I'm going to ask the caller to wait, and I will get back to my... No, I'm going to get this caller back, and I'm going to ask Vince, my guest, to stay right there. All right. Pick up. Vince? No, we got two Vinces on the line. I'm calling back Vince. Yeah, Vince, are you there?
Yeah, I got dropped.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I hit the wrong button. My apologies. I want you to finish your point, but what I was asking you is, I understand that we need to take a good look at the FBI, but I'm also asking you to take a look at the other side of this, that, when the president keeps calling these things a witch hunt, the thing wasn't a hoax. That's one thing that came out of this. Now, their methods are going to be caught in, and as Anthony said earlier, we all may sleep a little less safely because of the way the FBI behaved. But are you suggesting that none of this happened?
Well, here's the thing, Bob, and this I think is critical. Two things which every citizen in America needs to be afraid of. If the government goes to this secret court and presents evidence against you, you have no right to see the evidence. Even after they start attacking you and arresting, and if you get arrested. You have no right to know what they brought to the judge, anything. Okay, that's dangerous. But this thing with Carter Page, which tripped off the whole investigation, a lawyer, this is Mr. Horowitz is saying this, a lawyer on the team doing the investigating, and by the way, all these lawyers were picked by Mr. McCabe, who was fired, whose wife got a $700,000 campaign contribution.
Yeah, and who the president vindictively fired a day before he was going to get his pension. Let's not even go there. Let's not even go there.
No, but it's a fact.
No,
Okay?
come on. Let me use some frank language here. No, hold on. The president's a scumbag, okay? The way he behaves towards people. And it's separate from whether or not he should be removed from office, because that's what he did. So look, Vince, all I'm asking you to do is be fair. All I'm asking you to do is say, do you think Carter Page is for motherhood and against sin?
Okay, well, here's the thing, Bob. It's a fact that Mr. McCabe picked all these lawyers. You can judge what you think that means.
Well, yes, of course.
Now, here's the thing.
No, but you're not answering my question, Vince. You're not answering my question.
What is the question?
My question is, do you think there was no contact between the campaign and the Russians? Do you dispute the fact that
contact? Of course there was contact. There's contact all the time, all over the world.
So you're dismissing that. So you don't think after they hacked our election and they were contacted, they had just cause to look into this? You don't believe that?
There's something that meets the standard of evidence to secretly wiretap an American citizen.
I agree with you on that, but I'm asking you another question. I'm asking you if you think none of this happened.
Okay, but that's all right. What is it?
The question is, do you think that Carter Page, and why do you think these other people went to jail? Do you think it was all trumped up and manufactured? And do you think that?
It's called a process crime, Bob. That's why it's a stupid idea for anybody to ever talk to a prosecutor or the police.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Because all you got to do is, well, 2 years ago, this is what you said under oath. Now you said this. That's why General Flynn and Papadopoulos, it's all you lied, you did. Okay. But here's the thing with Carter Page. An email was changed by one of the lawyers that's on the McCabe-Pitt team.
Yeah, and?
In presenting the affidavit for the FISA warrant against Mr.
I've got
Page.
another minute, so make it quick. I'm late on the guest.
Here's what it is. The original email said, please be aware that Carter Page is a CIA asset and is working with our government.
Okay.
The lawyer took that out. So when the warrant went to when the thing went to the judge, and the lawyer said, look, this guy's talking to Russians. The judge, oh, okay, good, here's your warrant.
Vince,
if the judge knew this guy was working for the CIA, he would say, well, so
Vince,
what? Isn't that his job?
You know what, Vince? Here's my point. I'm gonna take everything you say, because I know you're a lawyer as well, and I respect that. That maybe Carter Page got a raw deal, and as Anthony suggested today, that he will be on appeal. Lord knows. But what I'm finding in this is that we have a situation that we haven't put enough, in my view, enough gravitas to, is when there was any suspicion, even the trumped up dossier, that the president could be in some way compromised by a foreign government, we have to look at that. And if we think that that has to be looked at, what you're suggesting, and you may well be right, and that's where we'll be in 6 months, that that it wasn't done fairly, that's a crime in and of itself, and I agree with you. But what I'm saying is there's still something happened, and we're all trying to explain it away to suit our visions. Maybe Carter Page got a raw deal, but do you think that there was no contact between? And look, I got to go to be continued, and I appreciate the call, but if you think there was no contact between these people and this was all a hoax and a witch hunt, maybe it was a witch hunt the way, one of the things I haven't brought up yet, I'm going to ask Vince Russo, who was a guest, to come back on. One of the scenes in the best movie about John Gotti was when the prosecutor said, I'm going to get this guy. There's nothing wrong with that if you believe a crime was committed and you have a theory. Now, if they did that, they probably shouldn't have done it with the president of the United States, but we keep dismissing that as, it was biased. I don't know if it was. And certainly enough people have written about the Inspector General's report and his saying this was not a politically motivated investigation, at least the way he felt. And then we get down into the fine print. Enough of a position for the president and Barr and everyone that defends the president to dismiss his report. Now everybody likes parts of the report that they see. I think we need to accept all of the report and that which it means. All right, I have got to get to my regular guest here, folks. So you will bear with me. I hope that's him. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester.
Hey, good morning. Vince Russo here.
Hey, Vince. Have you been hearing this debate ongoing? It seems that everybody wants to, I agree. And I thought Anthony was eloquent. And of course, Vince knows a lot of stuff. He's also a lawyer, the other Vince. But what I find is everybody sees in the report what they want to see. And in some ways that's good because it covers the nuance. The problem is I can't get too much nuance out of any individual. Everybody wants to grind their axe. How do you see this? And I might add that this man is a Republican. How do you see this? Because there are things to question about what the FBI did.
Well, look, I don't have the detailed knowledge of the whole thing that Vince the caller has. I'm only looking at things off on the surface. But I think that there were several instances where they showed that there was collusion between the Russian government and the Trump campaign people. Donald Trump's son met with people. I think it was pretty clear. I thought that should have been one of the indictable offenses, as well as violations of the Emoluments Clause and other things like that. I think that Democrats should have gone all in. I think this whole thing is going to backfire.
Yeah, so do I. And I don't know if you heard Anthony.
idea.
Anthony and I earlier both came to that conclusion. I think that they should have gone ahead and gotten Bolton. They should have gone ahead and gotten Giuliani. They should have gone ahead and gotten the people in the White House that would, even if we went to the Supreme Court, even after the election. I think you don't go to a gunfight with a knife.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And of course, to Vince's point, though, one of the things I think that annoys a lot of people is, the FBI, even in their gust to get to what may very well one day be decided as treason, if indeed it is, and I underscore that, they have to pursue these things vigorously. But as to the procedures for FISA warrants and things like that, yeah, the government may have too much power.
Well, and I think that he didn't directly answer your question. I mean, the fact of the matter is that with the situation with Ukraine, he did try and bribe them or coerce them into political activity that would benefit his campaign.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's pretty plain.
You know what I don't understand, and I let my own emotion get away with me, but it bothered me. I don't know if McCabe was a bad actor or not, but I do know it's very hard to get that high in the FBI without having, first of all, to go through an FBI background check, number one, and number two, be very good at what you do. And the reason I called the president what I called him was as a man, not as the president, is because he fired the guy a day before he was going to get his pension just to be vindictive. And since the president's a street guy and calls people names, we would have, if he were in the street and we were doing business with him in his business office in New York, I would have called him a scumbag. And he is.
Well,
and that's that's what people love about him too.
Well, the next domino to fall is going to be Rudy Giuliani.
Well, he's going to fall first.
Trump is going to send him down the river, just like he does everybody else that's been associated with him once they've outlived their usefulness.
Well, you do remember that Cohn was going to take a bullet for him. Now, again, all these people flip. I get that. And that's another part of the president I actually have some feeling for, is he feels that people are betraying them. But just like with John Dean and Watergate, they were ready to set John Dean up. So he said, no, not F me, F you.
Exactly.
I had always thought that Mueller was going to be the John Dean, the one guy to be totally honest in this case. And well, what a disappointment! What a great disappointment.
Yeah, he kind of wimped out. I mean,
well, he went down because it's the whole notion of revolution, and I'm using it in the most important sense. If one believes, and many do, that Donald Trump is I don't think he's a clear and present danger, but I think he's dangerous. I think he hurts the country, even though we have a better economy these days and things like that. Because
not because of him.
Well, no, well, I think it's on his watch. We got to give him his credit. But what I'm saying,
the economy was on the upswing when Obama left office.
Yes, it was.
And everything that Trump has done so far has hurt the economy. All these stupid tariffs that he put in have hurt the farmers and manufacturers.
Yeah, but he gave the $25 billion to make up for it.
That phony tax cut that he passed. Now, I'm a middle class citizen, and I now pay more taxes because of his tax cut than I did before this tax cut was passed.
It's because you live in New Jersey and you're the enemy.
Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, part of the tax cut was eliminating, the property tax deductions and things like that. Yeah, they raised the individual standard deduction, but it in no way compensates for all of those other deductions. So the middle class, again, took it on the chin. And the working class, of course, takes it on the chin, and the rich got the benefits from it. He wants to eliminate food stamps for 500,000 people. I mean, this guy is just horrible.
But that said, one of the things I always go back to here with people that can get right into the details and effectively well is, did the president do these other things or not? And as I was saying, even if one believes he's a clear and present danger, what do we do about it? We have to live with it. He was duly elected. I hate
Well,
it.
unless he's impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, which he committed. Then you impeach him.
Well, the Democrats, I think
He
the
colluded with
Democrats,
the Russians.
yes, and the Democrats have blown that the way they've handled the impeachment.
Well, for sure. But the one thing I want to say, I'm a Republican, and I'm a minor public official, and the one thing I want to say to my Republican colleagues is, we're better than Trump. The Republican Party is better than Trump.
You think?
I think they are. And
You
I
mean
think
their
we
core
can
values
be.
were? Your party had a core value, and rightly so, screaming and yelling about deficits, and they've gone sky high with every single president. And Trump's tax cut has raised it $1 trillion.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so what I'm saying is that, they're defending Trump, to the death. And I think it's ridiculous. I think that the Republican Party should be saying, this guy is awful.
But they're playing the long game,
And
Vin.
he doesn't represent. Well, I
They're
guess.
getting judges.
No, I think they're playing. No, I think they're playing. Well, they're playing kind of a long game, but I think they're playing a short game. I think they're playing that. Let's, for the next election cycle, appeal to our base, get them riled up. Any congressman or any senator who comes out in favor of Trump. Now, I have no evidence to back up what I'm reading, but you frequently hear in private members of Congress, the House of Representatives, and members of the Senate say they hope Trump would just go away. The Republicans. Now, I don't have any evidence to back that up.
Well, I've got people
Say-
Republicans who've told us that, sure. Same way the Democrats,
so-
by the way, wish AOC would go away and Bernie Sanders would go away, but they're not going.
Well, I wish the whole bunch of them would go away. I think the biggest thing we need is term limits. We have to have term limits from every office, from president on down to dog catcher. Get these people out. There's no reason why someone should be in the Senate for 40 years. There really isn't. And all they want to do is protect their jobs and not do what is good for the country. If there were term limits, then perhaps they would have some cojones and, propose legislation or policies that would make sense and would help the American people. But all they care about is appealing to a very narrow base and keeping their damn job. The fact that Congress members have to run every 2 years is also ridiculous. I mean, it's in the Constitution, and that really should be changed. It's very hard to change the Constitution.
There is another side to this, though. There's a theory. It's a great broadcaster and now columnist, McIntyre, out in Los Angeles, who talked about this. The term limit problem in California almost destroyed the country, because people did stuff to be elected for their second terms, knowing that they wouldn't have to be held accountable later on. And that's why the taxes are insane. They went way too far to the left. People are pooping in the streets and nobody cares. I mean, there is something.
But
I agree with term limits.
Term limit.
Yeah, they
think so.
attributed some of it. Vince, if you don't have to be held accountable, what a great thing. It's just another idea. I'm not saying I like your suggestion, and I think almost every caller to this program likes the idea of term limits, but there are downsides. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
Hey, I wanted to ask you about something else, because we'll be
Sure.
beating up this impeachment thing. We'll be doing it for a month, and certainly Anthony and Vince, and my apologies to both Vinces for screwing up the calls, by the way. They do their homework, and they can wax eloquently on their point of view, as can you. But I just want to move on, because we'll be debating it for the next year, I guess. You may have heard, and I hope you did, my monologue about Major League Baseball, and I equated it to what happened to Merrill a little bit, to Merrill Lynch. I don't know if you heard that or not.
I didn't hear it, no.
Yeah, and how when the greedy people from the institutional part of the business took over the company, they were militant against its culture, which put the customer first and cared about their employees. They were dismissive of small customers. They attacked the executives who used to run the firm, virtually moved them all out, And then, like, what's that insect? Is it a wasp that goes into the belly of a caterpillar and devours it? And that is exactly what they did and killed that wonderful company. And you worked there for a while. Do you understand the whole point of that? Because it still bothers me to this day, and it always will, because I lived it, I saw it. I wrote speeches for these people. It's just,
Well, what is MLB doing that you think equates to that?
well, I think the way they spin, they knew all about the PED thing long before it happened, and they just said, "Well, people are hitting home runs and they don't care." And then when they got caught, then they came out. Now, they tried to do this deal to kill 42 baseball franchises, even though minor league franchises, even though they went to court 2 years ago and they cut a deal over, the whole antitrust thing. They cut a deal, okay, to hey, if you let us only have to pay the major league minimum over the minimum wage to minor league ball players over in other words, they'll get 40 hours worth of 40 hours of the minimum wage. Okay, we'll do that, but keep our antitrust and we won't hurt the minor leagues. Now all of a sudden they went, oh God, we got away with that. So now they say we're going to change the way we run minor league baseball, and I understand that. And they use the pretext of worn down buildings and all this other nonsense to float the idea so they could save some $20 million when they have, well, maybe it was more, it could have been $100 million, and they have a $10 billion income. So in other words, they don't want the rules to apply to them, but they want the rules to apply to them wherein it helps them. And it's that kind of.
It's like that in any big business.
No, but the thing is, where we catch them is one of the teams that would go out of business is the Staten Island Yankees. Okay, have you ever been to their ballpark?
I've never been there, but I think it's always packed, and it's really a first class operation.
Well, the thing is, sometimes it's not always packed. Okay, but it is one of the most beautiful minor league ballparks in the world. It's on the river looking out on New York Harbor. It's one of the cheaper places to get to. You can be in New York City, take the train, take the ferry ride for free, and walk over to the ballpark. You can get on Staten Island Transit. The whole terminus is there. The train ends there. The bus ends there at the ferry.
Why would they want to eliminate the very thing that develops their fan base? I don't understand that.
Because TV money, but they floated it. So now they say, they're sort of saying it was a trial balloon because now they've got the Democrats and the Republicans finally agreeing on something. Anyway, and this was the heart of my question. Greed is good done right. Where I defend the capital markets people, even though they destroyed a company I loved, is without them, the value of things would cease to exist. They need to be greedy. They need to buy up anything that is undervalued and keep the value real. They need to play the markets. But I've always likened them to the acid in your stomach. You need that to eat and to live. But once the acid gets outside your stomach, you get an ulcer. It eats out the other organs and you die. But then you got idiots on some political parties that will say these regulations are bad. Like, I am not over the fact that 2 years ago, I think it was the Republicans in this case, put forward a bill where they wanted to drop the rule that you must consider your customers' interests first. I wanted to bang my head against the wall. I wanted to just slam it and let my eyes pop out and die.
Well, all of those rules that were put in place after the Great Depression in the 30s, were meant to prevent a recurrence of that, and that's all being unraveled.
Yeah.
All of that business where banks can't invest the customer's money, where banks and brokerage have to be separate. Mm-hmm. All of those things are being unraveled.
And the Democrats did it too. During the Clinton administration, they pushed getting rid of Glass-Steagall, which kept the commercial lending away from capital markets. So the greed goes all the way around. But you know what I always found interesting when I was there and I was writing for Merrill and teaching and doing all that other stuff. I would come out of one meeting that would say, oh God, we got to be careful doing business there because it's unregulated. We got to be careful about doing business in the Ukraine and then the Soviet Union and then Russia because it's corrupt. We have to be careful about doing business in the Middle East because it's corrupt and in Mexico because it's corrupt and blah, blah, blah. And then we get the Jamie, the guy that runs JP Morgan. Jamie Dimon say things like, we need to be more competitive in those markets and drop regulations. No, you know better than that, Jamie. We don't do business there because it's the risk is not worth it.
Yeah.
And so Wall Street always shoots itself in the foot that way. And that's what I just find baseball. I'm beginning to find the people that run it unseemly.
Well, I think that all of these salaries. I mean, some pitchers getting like $300 million or something. I mean,
yeah, I want to do a sex change and marry the guy.
Well, and look at the average fan. Nowadays, if you go to the ballpark, you and your wife and 2 kids, you're talking $700-800 a day.
Oh, I won't do that. I told
because of tickets, soft drinks, parking, souvenir. You can't get away with less than that. And the average fan has been way priced out of the market for these sports.
Have you been to the new? It's a beautiful ballpark, to the new Mets ballpark, Citi Field.
No.
Okay. Well, it's one of those. It's a beautiful stadium, and the amenities are terrific, but it's very vertical. And I went to one game in my whole life there now, and I sat upstairs. What a waste of an evening. First of all,
really,
ants are bigger than the players looked. You have to travel, you have to go up 88,000 flights of stairs. You have to park under a highway and cross through traffic that might get you killed to pay $18 or whatever it is for a hot dog. And I was wondering while I'm sitting there, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be better than Shea, because
it is better than Shea, but what do you mean by better? Is it prettier? Is it nicer? Does the food taste better? Is it a beautiful thing? And I guess if you have $1,000 and you can sit downstairs, it's probably fun. But I have to tell you, I've been to the Somerset Patriots. I've been to the AA Trenton Thunder. There ain't no difference except the names on the back. And they hit more home runs, and they hit more home runs because they have an unfair baseball. What next?
I thought Shea Stadium. I liked Shea. I thought it was a great venue, and it's interesting. I remember going to Shea the second day it opened. The Mets played the Phillies that day, and now the place is gone. It's the passage of time is just amazing. I used to go out there on a Saturday. My wife was working for the post office, and so she'd frequently work on Saturdays. So I'd take the train, get out to Shea when I was living in Brooklyn, and catch an afternoon game, and then get home and prepare dinner and stuff by the time she got home. So one day I said, "Gee, they're playing the Cardinals. Let me go out there to the game." So I go all the way out. I was living in Bay Ridge. I get on the subway, blah, 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 make all the connections. And, Bob, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. Forget those beeps you're hearing. It's just a background thing. Go ahead.
And so I get all the way out at Willits Point, and I look around, and the place is deserted.
What happened?
So I go downstairs, and I go to the, I see a guy walking, nearby the stadium, a person who worked there. And I said, "Hey, what's going on, man? I thought the Mets were playing today." And the guy looked at me and goes, "They are. They're playing in St. Louis."
Oh, well, that's a good point, Dan.
So I made my trip out there for nothing. But we recently went to a show on Broadway. We were in town to see my niece, and so we said, "Hey, let's go to the ticket kiosk in Times Square and get some half-price tickets," which we did. And the play was great. I mean, it was, something about what could go wrong in a play, or it was some comedy, which was actually quite good. So we go to the theater, which was, I don't know if they consider it off Broadway, but it was like 50th Street and 8th Avenue, and we go in there. So before the show, it was me, my wife, my sister-in-law, and my niece. And my wife says, well, you want something to drink? And I said, well, yeah, give me a water. So she and my niece go off. They get 4 bottles of water and 2 small glasses of wine. $70.
Yeah, it's insane. It's really
Crazy.
insane. Well, listen, Vince, thank you very much. Vince Russo. We'll get his commentary each day. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you in the AM.
All right, Bob.
All right,
care. Have a
take
good day.
care. Let's see. John Bailey. We've been trying to get John Bailey like crazy, and I think we finally. I typed in his number, but then again, we messed up, I think. Let me go to John Bailey. Let's go to John. Oh, God, come on. Give me the phone number here. Give me the phone number. This is the one, the only. Radio Westchester, the station at the station. It's still 29 degrees, going to get up to 35 today. And I'm just trying to figure out how, in God's name, this guy did not get my message. What we're going to do is take a look. John Bailey's coming up next. He is our man in White Plains. Then we're going to talk with Mike Bacco about some last-minute gifts. And then Andy Spano will be on at 8:35. And I just got one text from someone. They're tired, they say, of us always talking about the president and politics. Well, that's why we changed our what would you call it? We changed our position just a little bit here as we complete our remote efforts up here. By the way, I'm still waiting to hear from some people, not very far away in Albany, about this effort to give driver's licenses to those who were here illegally. But right now we need to get a hold of John Bailey, so we will do that, and hopefully he will pick up. John Bailey, of course, is WhitePlainsCitizen.net. He's not just a reporter, he's the managing editor and the publisher, and he also is the host of the TV show White Plains Week. Good morning, John Bailey.
Good morning, Bob, from White Plains, New York, USA.
And we're sorry that you had trouble getting in. We had a couple of technical issues before, but you are here now, sir. White Plains, what's going on? What's the top item on your list?
Well, the big thing is the White Plains sales tax for the first 4 months of our fiscal year is up 5.4%. That's a good sign. And the other big story as far as money goes is the county was 31% up in sales tax receipts in October. That is an amazing leap.
It is an amazing leap. And by the way, leap, we did ask County Executive George Latimer on Monday about the question that you put forward, which is, are you confident with the projections for next year? And he reiterated that he was, that based on the research that they did, and of course, there are no guarantees, you having pointed out the 20% increase in those taxes, John Bailey. Let's move on from there. I wanted to ask you about something. Did you see the Mike Kaplowitz story today?
Well, yeah, I was at the news conference yesterday, and the big takeaway is not that Kaplowitz is appointed, but the county is going to examine the 7 sewer treatment plants and see if they can combine and make efficiencies. And Kaplowitz is going to conduct the study, and this really puts a lot of pressure on future capital needs. Because if you were going to make new plants, consolidate them, build in new sewer lines, who is going to control it all? Is the county going to control it all? It sounds like it to me. And this is really terrific because, as you recall, Mamaroneck and Larchmont had a number of floods during a real rainy season a number of years ago, and White Plains had the problem because they were putting a lot of sewage into a smaller pipe and leading down to Mamaroneck, and it flooded out Mamaroneck. Remember that?
Absolutely do. And in fact, it was one of the earliest stories I ever did doing radio in Westchester County. I did want to ask you about about something else regarding Kaplowitz. Was it me? And I know he's well respected and did a good job, although he took some heat for siding with Rob Astorino. But didn't he say he
Yes.
was anxious to get out of politics and out of this stuff and go back to his private financial practice? What did I miss?
Well, you don't miss whatever salary they're paying him to come back as a commissioner, deputy commissioner.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, especially maybe the new salaries are more attractive because, again, and I'm not saying we have to hold him to that, but he seemed pretty adamant, and we had him on the broadcast. We thanked him for his service, and I thought he was gone. And then all of a sudden, it's like the guy in that movie Friday the 13th. They come back.
They always come back.
What
Bob,
else you doing
know.
in White Plains? Again, I want you to go to his newspaper, his website, whiteplainscitizen.net, and also watch his TV show, White Plains Week. What else you got in that bag of tricks of yours?
Well, the other thing that I find is interesting is we have a new journalism player in Westchester, Alain Began, who is running the River Journal from in Terrytown and places south, is expanding up to Peekskill, Cortland, and the northern cities.
The River Journal, huh?
Yes, and it's really he's really built that paper down there over the years since he took it over. And we look forward to seeing what he is going to bring, but he has certainly increased the circulation to where
Hey.
the River Journal is matching Westchester Magazine numbers.
Well, Westchester
And,
Magazine, and I hate to pick on them, but all of a sudden they've become a food journal. What the hell's going on with them? I mean, every text I get, every email I get, by the way, pizza, well, chicken, cake, and look, they're well run. I know the people that run them, and I kid them when I see them, and they say, Bob, that's what people want to read. I know.
People want good news, Bob.
I know. Well, that's what I thought, but I got one family member, and she stays on me all the time. I'm sick of politics. You got to do more stuff that women like, and she's right. But also to not do any politics.
Well, Trump gets tremendous support from women on the right, which is always a mystery. But
Yeah, but what does that get to do? Well, no. That's because of where you grew up. You didn't come from Brooklyn or Staten Island. They've got thousands of women in those locales, and some parts of those locales that will come up to me because they know I do talk radio and ask me if Mrs. Obama's a man. So yeah, he's got fans there. All right, let's go. What else you got in your bag of tricks?
Well, the layoffs at Gannett have started to go on nationally, and Gannett is so irritated that they've told people that they let go that if you talk about your experience here or what's going on, you're going to eliminate your severance.
Everybody does that. Wall Street does it. Everybody does it. The only reason I could take a crack at my old firm is that they're not there anymore. But
Not right.
Of course it's not right, but that's what gets done. You want the money, you sign. In fact, that's why, John, if I may, one of the greatest injustices going on today is the laying off and firing and dismissing of people over 50 and leaving them vulnerable. That's why I've always loved Obamacare, because between the ages of 50 and 65, if you get sick, you're doomed. But the reason that we don't have an uprising of baby boomers in this country about that, and now even the generation after baby boomers, is that when they let you furlough you and they give you 6 weeks or a year's pay, if you're lucky, they make you sign, you can't bitch, you can't sue. And so we've created an underclass between 50 and 65 that is going to be underemployed, underinsured, and vulnerable to losing everything they ever had.
Well,
So
that
don't
has
get me
been
started
going
on those contracts.
That is discrimination.
Of course it's discrimination, but if you get someone to sign that it ain't, you've done your job. No, I think that's a group of people that hasn't yelled and screamed enough, and their day is coming. What else you got? We got time for one more.
Well, the intriguing thing about White Plains is we appear to be the best fiscally managed city in the county. because we are not looking at a huge tax increase. The money is beginning to flow in. But the other item is what is behind the big rise in sales tax receipts. Is it the internet sales? I think it is. So that may not appreciably help
It may.
the city retail outlets or malls.
Well, thank you very much. What a great job. And we go back to in person again next week. John Bailey, you do terrific work. WhitePlainsCitizen.net. Listen and watch him on White Plains TV. Thank you, John Bailey. I've got to go back. I've got to move now on to our next guest. You're listening to Radio Westchester. This is Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone, and in a moment we are going to go, why don't my eyeballs work? We just lost. I'm telling you, yesterday, my eyeglasses broke. Once again, I rolled over on them. And so ergo, I can't see. So I put in my contacts, and that's working pretty well. But let me see why I can't see the last caller. Enter full screen. Okay. I can't see the last caller who I wanted to call back, but we are going to talk with Mike Bacco. He is going to talk to us about last-minute gifts. But first, let's take another look at the weather. It is 29 degrees across Westchester. Going to get up to 35 today. Sunshine all day. Tonight, pretty much the same thing. And as we get into the evening, it'll get down to 28 degrees. Tomorrow, cloudy with rain late in the day. The temperature will be 45. Saturday, rain early. The remaining cloudy, the high will be 55 degrees. And of course, they are brought to you. Our weather this morning is brought to you by our friends at United Hebrew, exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses, and it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And we are going to go to our next guest. And why did it... Where did you come from? Let's call our guest. All righty. We lost our next guest. I'm trying to do this. There they are. I think we have them, my friends. All right, please welcome once again Mike Bacco. Good morning, sir. How are you? Michael. We'll have to call him because that's how we roll. A little bit of a technical glitch, and I'm not going to hear about that from the powers that be. Let's get to Michael. Technical difficulties. Here we go.
Media.
Mike Bacco, please.
Okay, hold on 1 second. May I ask who's calling?
Yes, Bob Marrone at Radio Westchester. He was trying to get in. You guys were trying to get in a minute ago, and we're just following up to have our interview. So
Oh, okay.
thank you so much.
Hold on 1 second.
And that,
that's
folks,
okay.
is what we call dealing with a producer. You may as well hear it live because I'm working solo today. This is the one, the only Radio Westchester. We are the radio station at the
Bob?
train station. Yes, is Michael with us?
Not yet. Hold on. I got to connect you to our control room. Hold on 1
Okay,
second.
thank you so much. Now, Mike Bacco, broadcast and digital journalist. He works for Reuters, Fox News, Fox Business, WPIX, ESPN, and more. And many of us will be on the go. That's me during the holidays. When I get home later today, I will be looking at shopping. And we will talk with him about last-minute gifts. Mike Bacco, good morning.
Mike Bacco's here.
Hey, Mike Bacos. How are you? Bob Marrone. Thank you for making time for us this morning. We already
Absolutely.
talked with our audience about your bona fides and all the different things that you do. How do you manage to balance being on all these different networks and outlets? You've got to be a busy bee.
That is a good question. I wish that there was a secret recipe, but having a good team, having a supportive family, always helps. Working with great media partners like you is always a plus. But there's a lot to talk about and a lot to say. So there's a lot of different outlets to be on. So
Well-
I'm fortunate and lucky enough to have a great team and great opportunity.
Well, thank you. Like much like yourself, the way this business is. You spend 90% of your time on prep and 10% talking, and you're
Yeah.
busy and you travel and you move around, and your family does have to be understanding. But it also is Christmas time, and people like you and myself. I'm talking to the right guy. I will be back in later today. When I get home, I have to turn my attention to Christmas trees and shopping and things of that nature. And I do well last minute shopping, but I still need I still need ideas. And I was told by reliable sources that you could help us.
Well, your reliable sources were right, and it's interesting that you said that you're doing your shopping now. We've been doing research, and we've been following trends that say that people are waiting longer and longer to do their shopping. Now, one of the downsides to that, or one of the benefits, is that you could get closeout deals, or people wanting to get rid of their inventory or spark up some last-minute sales and deals. But if you wait too long, you could be shut out of the things that you want. You could get shut out of the particular sizes or the inventory or the color of certain things that you may want. So while there's definitely deals to be had and deals are still coming, you could run the risk of waiting too long. So there's actually a downside to waiting too long. But you're in the sweet spot right now. About 2 weeks to go is, statistically speaking, when most people are going to be doing their shopping.
Well, some people are smarter than I am. My other half, she's already sent out all kinds of stuff on forums and online, and they're going to be shipping it. A lot smarter than I am. But how can you help me?
Okay, well, here's one way I'm gonna be able to help you. And this first item, it's from the tech field, and it's really helps my wife and I with all of our travels and all the things that we're doing. It's from Verizon, and it's a mobile hotspot. It's called the Verizon Jetpack MiFi 8800.
Oh, those are great. I know what they are, the Jetpack. I sometimes use them for remotes, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the biggest thing that I love about it is not that we could watch movies when we're waiting for flights or when we're in certain places. It's the security that comes with it. The amount of times that people walk into a coffee shop, or they're at the airport, or they're in a public space, and they trust the Wi-Fi network. Not to say that all Wi-Fi networks are not secure, but the number of the issues that come up with some of these Wi-Fis that you log into.
Oh,
you
God,
could take
yeah.
out that, you could take out that variable. You could sleep easy. You could watch your movies. My wife and I travel a lot to see family around the country. So when we're in one place trying to speak to other people in another place, having video chat either through FaceTime or different devices, having this mobile hotspot that's really going to take that communication to the next level and really take the ease of that communication to the next level.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. How is it expensive?
Well, you're investing in something, so it's not inexpensive. It's about $28 a month, or just under $500 if you sign up with a two-year plan. So if you're a traveler, if you're always out on the go, it's an investment in security.
God.
Think about the headache, or think about all the things you have to do if your phone gets hacked, or if your accounts get hacked by logging into one of these unsecure hotspots. So it's an investment in your security, but it's also a great tech item.
It's a very much a great tech item, and I am familiar with it. What else you got?
So I'm also thinking about what suits my lifestyle, what will make my lifestyle easier. I'm always watching movies when I'm traveling. If I'm just rolling around trying to get to work or appointment to appointment, I've always got earbuds in. I'm always listening to something, doing research, listening to your show.
Smart man.
I want to do it without wires, and that's why I love the Samsung Galaxy Buds. So they're a wireless headphone system. Great crystal clear sound. You're not dealing with the wires. They're compatible with all devices. So again, there's some great speaker options that are wired. Certainly, when you get your phone, your iPhone, they come with those with the wireless buds from Apple. But in terms of a recommendation, taking it to the next level, the Samsung Galaxy Bud, no wires, you're in great shape.
I think I know who's going to get one of these, and she's probably listening, because I may be looking at the hockey game or something like that on TV, and she's over there on her device. She needs these buds.
it's great for second screen experience. I mean, you're speaking my language, where I may be watching a game or a movie, and my wife may be wanting to do something else. And while we watch some of the same shows and have some of the same tastes, oftentimes we're sitting there wishing that we were watching something else, want to spend time together, but sometimes we want to have those different viewing experiences. So it's great for that. It's also great for when you're traveling. And just think about, I have a 2.5-year-old, and when we're traveling,
oh my God,
with him, we've got our own bags. We've got his bags. We've got the car seat. We're buckling things in. The last thing I want to do is deal with another wire. Talking about like a frustrating experience, that takes it right out of that realm.
We're talking with Mike Bacco. He is a digital journalist, trends expert. You hear him on just about everywhere, from Fox Business, WPIX TV locally here in New York, and more. And we're talking, and he's talking to the right guy, me, but many of you are in our ballpark, my ballpark, last minute shopping gifts. This Galaxy Bud, in fact, I'm sure if she's listening, she's saying, hey, Robert, you ought to get them. All right, what else do you have?
All right, my last item is what I'm going to call the Winter Essentials column. So we're all in New York. Talking about a couple days earlier this week, we were in the 60s and it was rainy. It's been in the 20s and 30s. You want sensible items that are going to get you through all of these different winter, variables. So whether you want to be cozy at home, whether you're going to work and you need to layer up, or you're going out for an event, or just want to be festive, my go-to winter essential is Land's End. They offer great items like blankets that you could use when you're at home binge watching, and you just, comfy fleece blanket. They've got pullover sweaters. They've got turtlenecks. They've got V-necks. They've got waterproof boots. Land's End is one of those brands that everyone looks in their closet and they have a couple of Land's End items that have been there for a while. And while they make stylish items, they also make very durable items, and they stay in your closet because they're really well made. I've got a couple. I'm really looking forward to giving some of these out for some of my friends that are looking to just have some of those staples and to really enhance their winter wardrobe and to stay warm, especially here in the Northeast and especially in the New York area.
You're not kidding. And by the way, do you want to not mention fleece warm blankets to someone who gets up 4-ish in the morning?
It's one of those where you just it just makes you want to get back in bed, or it makes you want to get back.
Yeah, doesn't it though? By the way, have you considered wearing your Galaxy Buds when you have a 2.5-year-old? That's the terrible. I've been through the terrible twos with kids and grandkids. It's a lovely time, but it is a busy time. My goodness.
It is. Thankfully, all of our friends and all of our other family members are, because the twos have not been so terrible. They're now saying, well, just wait for the terrible threes, because they're anticipating a turn. But so far, fingers crossed, he's been pretty good. He's a good traveler as well, which this time of year, with all the different traveling and trying to see different people, to have a travel companion, I'll call it, that is up to the task and isn't going to give us too much trouble. That really makes our lives a lot easier.
Is this your first? And I have to wax here because it is Christmas time. If it's your first.
Oh, please wax poetic, Bob. This is our first, and we've got another one coming in April, so it'll be a spring baby.
You sound a little too busy to be making babies, but I'll go there. But let me tell you this. Christmas for you, the holidays for you are going to be, whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, combination of both, which we have in my family, it's going to be blessed with. There's nothing like watching a child open gifts and begin to understand the holidays and Christmas.
Yes,
it's a beautiful thing.
That is definitely something that we are looking forward to, and I appreciate the sentiment and the advice. That is something that we are treasuring each year, and each year that he's understanding it more and more. So it's something great to look forward to.
Oh man, good for you. Hey, I can't thank you enough. Now, one more. If you want to give me a summary of the gifts or a shout out to any of the people who are helping you do this, please do.
Yeah, please, everyone, look out for more tips and trend ideas at dailynational.com. And like I mentioned, the Verizon Jetpack, that's the Wi-Fi system, the Samsung Galaxy Buds, that's the wireless headphones. And then, of course, if you want to stay cozy and comfy, we've got the Land's End items like the fleece blanket, the waterproof boots, and all the different things that you could get either in the catalog or online.
I want to end with this image. So I go get myself a cabin out in the country where it's snowy and rent a cabin. Bring my mobile jetpack so that I can watch TV and watch
I
my
like where you're
movies
going.
and go, I don't know yet. This is my fantasy, okay? I got my Galaxy Buds and I'm under your Land's End blanket. And that sounds pretty good. I think I'm going to
That's
do
not
it.
bad.
Hey, thank you
That's
very
not a
much,
bad-
Mike Baker. Great job. Great to get to know you as well. Be no stranger, please.
Wonderful, Bob. Thanks for having me on, and a happy holidays to everyone listening.
Happy holiday, Merry Christmas, and enjoy that 2.5-year-old. Take care, Mike Baker, everybody. We look straight ahead now, but I'm going to have to go out and buy those buds if certain people are listening because I said I would. I gotta buy 2 pair actually. Let me see what time it is. My eyes are failing me. It is 8:14 in about 5 minutes. We are going to talk with, let me see, Ivar Hayden, City Councilman from District 4 here in New Rochelle. Now I know that we had a couple of people who were trying to get in, and we want to be sure that everyone gets heard. And the guy who wanted to be heard, and I got a few minutes to get to him, is our good friend Tom from Pelham, who actually spends a lot of his time gloating. And gloating about what, you say? Tom gloats about his Islanders, but he's also, in fairness to him, gloating about, I think, let me see who this is. This may well be Mitch, so I'll have to get him on later. Let's see who's on the telephone. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester.
Yeah, I had to call back after listening to you and Vince from New Jersey crying each other's milk.
Okay, hold on before you do that. Just keep in mind I got 3 minutes, and then I've only got 3 minutes. So
I'm just going to make one comment.
Yes.
Just one comment. I want to thank, because I didn't go there this morning because I didn't want to be snarky, and I didn't want to make it look like I was gloating. I just wanted to discuss things factually.
You can.
Okay? So now I'm going to make the comment because you two guys were crying in each other's milk.
Yeah,
Okay?
it turned
because
to
you didn't stay on point. You had to go back to the emoluments clause, and he did this. He did everything you said he did. Okay, but I want to thank the IG for showing the real collusion yesterday, for uncovering the facts about the collusion between the Hillary campaign, the DNC, and the FBI. Why? To deny a citizen and a president of the United States. Okay? I told you guys from day one, I was not a Trump. Out of the 21 people on the stage, he was probably number 18
yes,
for me. Okay?
I didn't know he was that far.
And I'll equate it to the coach situation in Rochelle. He was the long overdue enema that this country needed because the left took this country so far out of the realm of normalcy that this is what they needed, this is what they got. And now, from day one, check the emails. It's only been a matter of impeachment. So I want to thank the IG for exposing the true collusion yesterday. True collusion,
or would it be
not
fair
the
to say
manufactured one.
The other collusion? You don't think there was any collusion? I'm not sure there was either. I know Vince does, but listen, you are totally appropriate in getting to say what you just said, and that's fair. We went into opinion. You just did. Fair enough, and thank you. Okay.
You got it.
No, that's what we do here. And he keeps us honest as well. I really did want to try and get to Tom, but Tom from Pelham, if you're listening, we'll make a little time for you after the Bob Cox report at 9 o'clock because we really have to do a reset now, and we have to get to. And folks, if you're listening, if it sounds like it gets testy, you should only understand you will be welcome here. You can kick my butt. You can have your say. That's what we do. This is about free speech. And if I learned anything from the man I used to work for, and even though I don't work there anymore, he built a whole radio station on free speech, and I'm trying to do the same here with a broader context, a broader audience, a broader number of issues, particularly when it comes, we do more national stuff because that's what you want, but we also still keep it local. And so if you call in and you think that the president is a saint, we're going to accept what you have to say. You disagree with us, we're going to accept what you have to say. You agree with us, we're going to accept what you have to say. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to be wrong. Clearly, those of you, many of you listening today may be saying to yourselves, my goodness, Bob's wrong all the time. Please join the conversation. You will be welcome. And even if it sounds a bit testy, I always say that the best examples I have, Mitch and Tom and, of course, Anthony, and now Vince and some others, and the other Vince Malfitano. We don't agree and we yell at each other, but some of these people here I would trust with my life, and we don't always agree politically. but we hear one another out, and you will be always welcome. Let's see who's on the line. Good morning. Is this Ivar Hayden? No, it's a caller. Did I miss the button? I missed the button. Who was that? 7962. Here we go. Good morning. You're on Radio Westchester.
Hey, good morning. It's Ivar.
Hi, Ivar. How are you? Ivar Hayden is the city councilman from District 4 here in New Rochelle. Your budget, sir, had some good news and it had some, I don't want to say bad news, but for some it is. Perhaps it is. The good news is there'll be no straight up tax increase. You all on the council push back. The other thing is people are still, I'm getting mixed reviews on the outflow tax, or rather the fee, which is being applied because of infrastructure. How did those discussions go, and what's your take on both sides of that equation?
Well, I obviously was not happy with it, and I don't think any of us are happy with it. I think that, given everything that's going on, we really did not want to raise any taxes or fees in the city of New Rochelle, and unfortunately, we have this huge sewer business hanging over our heads, some of which is mandated by the county, some of which is, due to the 100-year-old infrastructure that we're dealing with, and some of which is due to the new development. There's no question about that. The developers are kicking in for a portion of this, but we're going to need some more money. And I'm hopeful that, since we're at the beginning of this entire process, and the bulk of the money that we're going to be receiving from property taxes and all of this development is yet to really come on to our books, because it's really just starting, that over a period of time that we will be able to eliminate this fee once all of this is done. And my hope is, with the hundreds of millions of dollars in additional property taxes, plus, my idea for David's Island, that eventually we're going to be able to actually start to reduce property taxes. That's what I'm hoping for by the end of certainly by the end of this coming term, my city council term. I'd love to see that, and I think it's possible for us to do that. I understand that, this is nobody likes to do these things. Nobody likes to increase fees. The only thing I can say about a fee as opposed to a tax is that it's more equitable, because it means that everybody is paying, not just property owners. We have certainly we have a lot of not-for-profits, and we have a lot of commercial businesses that especially the not-for-profits who don't pay into the property taxes at all. They would have to be picking this up. I'm hoping that we'll be able to increase the commercial rates some more before we get a final vote on this. And we're working on those kinds of things. But it's more equitable. It spreads across, and a greater percentage of the people and organizations and businesses in New Rochelle have to pay into this. So it is what it is. And that's my take.
One question I have about the take, and this really isn't for you, it's for city management, and we've kind of declared a moratorium in that while we were getting settled, because they're also our landlord, and I just wanted to be sure that people didn't feel that we were pandering. But we will get the city manager on, whom we have a great deal of respect for. But the question is this: to the extent that you can internalize it, one of the concerns that people have is there was a lot of really good planning that went into this, if you will, enterprise zone. We're getting lots of development. There was a bond floated a couple of years ago for infrastructure. Was this one of those things where, it costs more money? Was it not anticipated, or did we just fail to anticipate it? What was your take?
The county part of it, we did not know was going to come down the road. It's a couple of years ago. We've had to scope every single sewer pipe in the city of New Rochelle. That had to be done. We were mandated to do that, and mandated to bring all of the sewers up to code. And we've been doing that over the last couple of years, discovering that a big percentage of the existing sewer lines need to be either relined or redone. Mm-hmm. That was something else entirely that we were not aware of. We didn't know how bad the situation was. So, I mean, that didn't have to do with planning for the development or any of that kind of thing. And a good part of the development was already planned for. I think that what everybody was surprised by, and this is the other thing that none of us anticipated, that we would be reaching our 10-year goal in terms of the overlay zone in the first 4 years, which is really kind of astonishing. Nobody really thought about that. So, there are several different factors involved in all of this, and I'm not trying to duck out of the
there are. You know what?
responsibility for this, but
One of the things, pardon me for interrupting, Councilman, but one of the things where we all become unfair is when people explain the reason for something, it comes off as an excuse. There are always reasons. I'm one of those people that I do want to hear the reasons, and I'm not. You can tell an excuse that's just like like what Major League Baseball is doing, but on one hand, but no, I understand why that would have evolved. Now I want to go to something else. Your colleague Al Tarantino waxed as eloquently as one could because he has a business in the downtown. He realizes that for the next couple of years, it's going to be a struggle, that businesses are leaving because of the development, but more importantly, because they can't get a let's say, a more economically acceptable deal with some of the newer development. And he said that there are efforts that will be made to reach out to the developers. Now, you too have a business in the downtown, wonderful art and framing shop. Are you suffering as well in your business? And what do you see, for example, if you wanted to move to one of these new buildings, it might be preemptively expensive.
It is. There's no question about that. I think that Al is absolutely right. And yeah, sure, our business has suffered too with the street closures, digging up the streets, all of the issues that involving the new buildings being put up, and the infrastructure repairs, obviously. I think, no, Al is absolutely right. And I think that part of the problem is that new construction costs so much. And of course, the landlords want to pass it along to any retailers that they're going to try to put into their buildings. We actually have a consulting firm that we have been working with now in the city, and part of their responsibility is to not only help us find retail that is appropriate for the kind of downtown that we're developing, but also to help us work with the actual developers to do things like negotiate rent deals for the tenants coming into these buildings. And I've also been working through the IDA and through the Local Development Corporation to try to do that as well, to try to find ways to help new businesses, entrepreneurs, especially young people who come in with good ideas, to get a rent break on the premises for the first couple of years to get them started. I think that the developers, the ones that I've spoken to, understand that they don't want vacant storefronts. They really don't. And they are willing to come to the table and sit down and discuss the rents. The problem is, even if we get a break for the first couple of years, it's extremely difficult to pay, $30 a foot for retail space, especially for small businesses, mom and pops that are being eaten up by the internet. And we'll have to see, but we are working on a couple of different programs. I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to do this. There are some businesses that have, the new little tasting room that opened up, right? Diner Brew Company, which is the microbrewer out of Mount Vernon that's open on Division Street. People were, wondering about that. Was that going to work? And it's been mobbed every single night. So
That's
it's an example of what is possible here, And yes, and exactly the kinds of businesses that appeal to the demographic that we're trying to bring in, those businesses are going to do fine. And some of them will be able to pay that high rent. Some of them won't be able to, and I'm hoping the developers will work with us for our benefit and for their benefit to make sure that we have a vibrant streetscape and all these businesses operating along the street that makes New Rochelle look good and feel right when you're walking down the street and have goods and services available.
Well,
it's not an easy. It's this is really curious. I've been working on this now for 4 years, and it's very interesting because all of this is changing, and it's changing across the country, not just in New Rochelle.
Well,
and
isn't
we're
it
going to
also
have to come up with different ways to deal with this.
isn't it also true, the old adage, a rising tide raises all boats? At some point in time, as these buildings become inhabited and more money comes to the downtown, it will justify the kinds of rents that are there, perhaps at that time. But in the interim, you can't charge the money until it's kind of like a chicken and egg thing. You can't be
I
charging the
agree.
money for an environment that doesn't yet exist.
No, that's very true. And I do think when we're built out,
Yes.
then certainly the spaces are worth more because there's more density, more people to be able to support the businesses. I'm mostly concerned about the next 3 or 4 years,
Sure.
which is going to be extremely difficult for everybody in the downtown, existing business as well as new business. And we're going to do everything we can to try to mitigate the situation. And as I say, the developers are not stupid either. They, well, I shouldn't say that based on past history with a couple of the developers, but certainly the Avalons were very disappointed because they let those storefronts sit vacant for the entire period that they were there, basically, with very few exceptions, and were very difficult. From what I heard from people who were trying to rent those stores, they would not negotiate. They were not easy to deal with. But the newer developers that are coming in, certainly RXR and Wilder Bolter, and I've spoken to both of those groups, are much, much more open to discussion because they certainly don't want to have that retail space sitting vacant. It doesn't look good for them.
You know what?
renting the
You know what I would
apartments
suggest to them? But my old field, I think they should get a quant. And you know what quants do? They could sit down
Yeah.
and project how the income streams that will develop as a result of people moving in. And so they ought to be able to put together a chart that says it's better to get, and I'm making this up now, $28 a square foot for a year, and then 30 for another year, and 31. And what happens is it evolves right to that sweet spot anyway, rather than leave the place empty.
Absolutely, Bob.
So it
No,
seems
you're
to-
right. I mean, it's straight up business, isn't it? Really, when
Yeah.
it comes right down to it.
Hey, so
And they certainly have no benefit in having empty space that's not generating any income at all.
Yeah, I always wondered why the Avalon was willing to leave those things empty. I mean, the hotel business learned a long time ago through all these different aggregators, an empty room doesn't bring in any money, and so long as it pays
Right,
for the staff.
exactly.
Hey, what's going on? What do you
I
want?
don't know.
What do you want to shout out about? Let me give you the agenda today.
Oh, well, that's very nice of you. I don't know. I guess I want to. The first thing that comes to mind is how annoying it is to deal with some of the public utilities, right? And we deal with this here in Rochelle, Con Edison, and Verizon, and Suez Water, and Cablevision. All these people digging
Yep.
up the streets all the time.
Yep.
And what isn't mostly annoying is the fact that that suddenly, somebody is digging up a street without a permit. You question this, and it turns out that it's an emergency, and that's why they're doing it. And more, it appears, I don't know this for a fact, but it appears that they're just digging up randomly whenever they decide they want to without filing permits,
Whoa.
just calling it an emergency. And this seems to be going on and on. I know our Department of Public Works is extremely annoyed and troubled by this.
I'm glad
and
they
is
are.
constantly fighting battles with Con Ed. Yeah, and I think the other thing is the lack of responsiveness. We have a couple of buildings going up on Burling Lane. These are new construction. These buildings are in place. They're finished. They're ready to go, and they can't get hooked up to Con Ed, even though the plans have been in the works for months and months and months.
I do
So now you have
understand.
finished buildings sitting here, ready to be occupied, and no electricity.
Well, you know what? We've got to get
no
the governor,
response.
and the county and everyone else to really start arm twisting, because you can't go from point A to point B. I know every time I come out of the train station, I go to make that left on Burling Lane. They're digging up again,
Right.
or they're not digging up. Listen, I've got to go, but a great job. City Councilman District 4 here in New Rochelle, Ivar Hayden. Thank you so very, very much. And
Thank you.
you have a good weekend. Take care. We move straight ahead now. Of course, our next guest will be Andy Spano, and he should be calling in directly. Right now, it's still 29 to 30 degrees now, getting up to 35 today. today. Sunshine through high, thin clouds. The temperature will be 32. That's sort of average out most of today. Mostly cloudy. The temperature will be 28. Tonight, cloudy with rain late in the day. Tomorrow, the temperature 45. And on Saturday, rain early, then remaining cloudy, a high about 55 degrees. Unfortunately, on Sunday, it'll be, well, actually, I should say fortunately, will be partly sunny and breezy, the high 47 degrees. And the weather was brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And the bottom of the hour is supported by Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Payne and Khan. Plug in virtual reality. Don't forget tomorrow at 8 o'clock, Dominic's Fine Cigars will be sponsoring Jake Schaefer's Picks of the Week. He's 17 and 14, folks. But I'm telling you, you are going to want to listen to Jake's picks because he's like a little investment firm. All right, we're reaching back out to Andy Spano right now. This is the one, the only Radio Westchester. And let's see, did he answer? No, I don't think he did. We're going to try one more time. Let's hit it. There we go. He should pick up momentarily, and there he is. As we head into the bottom of the hour, you know him as the former county executive, former educator, now political pundit. He does some work. He's on the election commission in Albany, but he's one of our go-to guys for politics, local, national, and so forth. Please welcome Andy Spano. Good morning, county executive. How are you?
I'm fine, Bob. How are you?
Doing pretty well, getting both either beat up or kissed, depending on who calls. And I guess, we'll start there.
What are the numbers?
Okay.
You're getting more of one and more of the other.
Well, we've always tended to get more supporters of Trump calling than not, but it depends on the specific day. But today, one of the things I'm seeing is the Inspector General's report has given, for those who and rightly so, have concerns about the power of the FBI and how they behaved. They're looking at the Inspector General's report as somehow a total vindication that it was a witch hunt. And so I'm kind of forced to say to them, but you deny that these things happened. And then it gets kind of convoluted. But then they rightly say, hey, look, but the finger appeared to be on the scale. So they're supporting the president, even though the president is dismissing the Inspector General's report. And people on the other side are saying, yeah, they may have the finger on the scale. We need to look at it, but the president did these things, blah, blah, blah. How are you interpreting? That's a great new word I invented. How are you interpreting?
No, the report on the FBI and how it handled, some of the things they handled in order to get the permission, it's pretty upsetting.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Pretty upsetting. On the other hand, there's no evidence that there was any witch hunt. So that now was there a finger on the scale? Who the hell knows? I mean, you can. We're so polarized at this point. I don't think any fact is going to be, convincing to anything. Each side is just dug in. If you go on the internet, and I had a friend of mine did this the other day. He put Trump good, Trump bad, and saw how many responses he got.
How did it go?
Twice as many on Trump good than Trump bad.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, because it was not scientific. It was just those two words.
No, but the reason I keep saying why is for people that are like never Trumpers, don't want to give him credit for anything. That you can't talk to them. Equally for the people that are pro-Trump no matter what. But I think what gets missed in this is, an awful lot of decent folks, and they call this radio station, an awful lot of decent folks are glad that the president blew the current notions about politics and how it works. And I think we have an obligation to understand why, because he's a very distasteful man. I even called him a distasteful thing today over the fact that when he fired, one of the meanest things he ever did was when he fired that one individual, McCabe. He did it the day before his pension was due. And I used a terrible street term to define what that was. But yet, people support this man. We need, in all fairness to other Americans and Americans in general, to understand why they feel the left overreached to this extent. And how do you interpret all of that, Andy? How do you interpret the fact?
Well, we talked about a lot about this. There's a thing that, people like what you see is what you get, and with him, what you see is what you get.
Yes.
With everyone else, it's not.
That's true.
That's it.
And
that's the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned. You see him, all his flaws and everything, and you say, considering what might be the other guy's flaws, these are okay. And you're gone. Plus, he's a pit dog. Anyone, the franchise business at all?
You sure I do.
Well, okay. So I was involved in the franchise business in one of my crazy youth years. And
boy, what I love to do is show, on your crazy youth years, increase my ratings twofold. Andy Spano, go ahead. Andy Spano's, could you hear it? The name of his show, Andy Spano's Crazy Youth Years, coming right up. Go ahead.
We had a I could talk about Kentucky Fried Children. That was one of the franchises.
Oh, God, no.
It's what we called it. There is a not publicly.
No, of course
but but where you always said, never put your franchisees together.
Right.
In politics, that you use that too, because you get these people that have, this guy doesn't like you because of this. This guy's got a complaint to that. This guy's got a complaint for all that. You put them in one room, they all gang up on you, and they look like a single block, but they're really not. Because once they beat you up, then they're all fighting amongst each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what he has going. I think he has that going too. He has all dissatisfied people that come together, that never trusted government, that their lives are bad, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then he's got the additional group who he is catering to, people who are wealthy, who got a big bang out of this tax thing. And he's got them going solid 35 to 40%.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't ebb.
And you get a lot of phone calls that looks even, because they're very vocal, very active, and they come in your face, just like the alt left does. So,
I got to say, the people that call who defend the president, they do their homework, man. I have to be on my game. They can tell you chapter and verse what somebody said in a hearing that supports the president and leave out everything else, or even in consideration. They know their stuff. But I did come up on something that everybody agreed on, callers on both sides today. And that is that the Democrats haven't played this hand well, that they should have, even if it meant going past the election, they should have gone forward and gone to court to get those other witnesses. They should have integrated in a more comprehensive way. If they were going to do this, the Mueller report, and had a little more respect for the American people's ability to understand it, because now it's like going to a gunfight with a knife, and they may have overreached.
No, there's no way Trump can win with a large turnout. This is turnout stuff.
Yeah.
They're going to lose in the Senate. Trump is not going to be convicted.
Right.
But it's going to aggravate everyone else. The anti-Trump, the other, it's going to aggravate everyone. They come up with the right candidate, Trump can't win. Period. And the right candidate is not going to be, someone alt left like Bernie or someone like that.
Oh God, no.
They put up Bernie, and then he's got a shot. They put up Elizabeth, then they got a shot. They get someone like Biden or someone like Bloomberg. I think he's got a race. Or what's her name from Minnesota? Klobuchar?
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay. Do you think she'll be the vice presidential nominee, Klobuchar?
I don't know. She's tough. She's smart. She's very attractive as a candidate. You know, people don't get to know her because they're overshadowed by all the noise going on about the left and Buttigieg and that kind of guy. You know, but you know, she rose 9 points this week.
Wow. You know what's funny?
So-
I got
so-
some caller called in yesterday. I can't remember. I talked to so many guests, and they mentioned that Buttigieg is a really interesting and smart candidate, but he actually hasn't done a very good job as mayor, you know, and so we'd be doing an Obama thing again where a guy doesn't have a lot of experience, but he's smart. Being smart isn't enough, is it?
We don't need to be excited about our candidate. This is the job. The guy, whoever comes in, woman or man, has got a big job. First of all, it's the 21st century. The problem I have with Biden is I think he's honest and capable and so on, but we may just have a little 20th century creep when he comes in, in terms of how he functions. They've got to have a 21st century outlook. They've got to repair the government. Now, a guy like Buttigieg, what does he do about repairing the government? He's got to find a way to where his office is first. You know what I mean?
If he doesn't know where the Oval Office is, I'm worried about that.
I'm serious. You need someone who has a perspective.
Calm down.
In their mind of the entire government, you know, and how it basically operates. You know, a guy sitting in an embassy in Sweden and someone sitting somewhere in, worrying about floods in New Orleans and knows how to put all that together. And there are two guys I think can do that. You know, I think Biden can do that, and I think that Bloomberg can do it. Now Bloomberg has it over everybody else. He's been the chief executive of the largest and most difficult job outside of the presidency in the United States. Mm-hmm. He's a billionaire, so he can talk to the other side. They're not going to run away. And he can convince them of things. So he can run the government, convince them of things, and he understands technology, its effect, and how it works.
Believe me,
he does.
He was one of the people. He doesn't get enough credit for having revolutionized technology. You know, long before Facebook and even Microsoft came along, he put that Bloomberg terminal together with stuff. He had email for 10 years before we did on his terminals.
Yeah, no, I know.
Well, I worked with him at Merrill. So he was a genius.
He's not flashy. You know what I mean? And the other thing is, picks good people, and he's going to do the job. He's not going to care what anyone says or does.
Okay, now let's get to the hard math here. We're talking with Andy Spano, former county executive here in Westchester County, but also now a political analyst and one of the first people to call the election for Trump. I'll never forget that and your wisdom during that time. Will this country...
A year in advance.
I know. I already bragged enough about you. I'm going to start that other show, Andy Spano's Youth Years, and we have with us the district attorney at that time. Anyway, did you... you just got that, huh? And his rap sheet. Let's get to cases here. Will this country elect a 5'6" Jewish guy?
No, that'll be interesting.
You know, because
that'll be interesting.
I mean, you know, I still remember.
I don't care about. Listen to me. Jewish guy, African American guy, Hispanic guy. Where are the Italians?
I'm talking to one of them. You're going to run? You know, that's a good question.
They not only don't get elected, they don't run.
No, I think they don't. Well, you know what happens every time an Italian runs, they say he's connected to the mob. But no, actually, we've had the Podestas and a lot of great Italians in government, Carlucci, but not run for president, senators. I mean, look at the lapdog that's the Secretary of State, Pompeo. Is he Latino or is he Italian? And again, who?
Oh, I don't know.
And Anthony Scalia.
I'm obviously only kidding. But.
No, I know that, but still, it is worth talking about. Well, but can he get on the ticket, and can he survive to win on Super Tuesday? You know enough about these conventions. Is it plausible?
I think that he Super Tuesday's big for him because he's got to show some strength on Super Tuesday. He's got to get X number of delegates. Now, if he can get into the convention with nobody having enough votes, that's good enough for him. If he has a significant amount of votes, because then it's all brokering.
Well, yeah.
And he'd be good at brokering because he can make the case.
Let me tell you, he can make deals like nobody's business. We've done,
Right.
You know,
Right.
again,
he makes you know, if he has enough votes, certainly gets the people who are just a little off base there. They don't have to worry about him raising money, so that maybe hurts Biden. He's got all the lefties are out because everyone knows they get problems. And he picks and he could put some votes together enough to win the convention.
I just a little first person story about dealing with Mike. I had the privilege of being the point man to be the first person, the perfect company to buy his data, what we used to call outside the box. To get Bloomberg's excellent data, you had to buy the terminals. But we were building a new customer database, without getting into details and information about companies and et cetera. And we wanted to buy his data out of the box. And it was gut-wrenching to negotiate with his people who would always throw his name. But more importantly, what I did and what I had my team do was read his book because Michael unveils a lot in the book, a Bloomberg by Bloomberg. And what he does so well, you know the way a lot of big companies and even in government, you have committees do stuff? Mm-hmm. He eviscerates them because he understands the groupthink that goes on in those committees. My point being that he has an ability to find out who the real decision maker or makers are. And if they're weak, if they are susceptible, like they even have this trick, like you'll be in the middle of, and believe me when I tell you, executives are susceptible to name dropping. So you're in the middle of a negotiation with Bloomberg's people and we're going to have to call Mike on that. And all of a sudden, even the chairman of Merrill Lynch used to wet his pants. And so my point is, if he gets to a position with his people where he can horse trade, he will win. He will get the nomination. He's that good. And I would tell anybody.
But people got to get to know him. They got to, you mentioned 5'6" Jewish person. That may be a problem in certain areas of the country because just like we think that everything's eliminated, only anti-Semitism is eliminated.
No,
we know that it isn't.
Look at Charlottesville. Blood and soil. That's all about the Jewish part of that craziness that went on.
Yeah, but
down.
that craziness always existed under the microscope. It still was there. Now at least it's out in the open because we've got a president that seems to allow it. So we shall see.
So where do you think is going to happen? The president's certainly not going to be convicted. And like Lords, when he does get, as you saw probably in the newspapers, McConnell wants it to get to a vote so he can be acquitted. And once that happens, it's going to be like someone with a disease going to Lords. It's going to whitewash everything. And that's a wise move if you're a Republican.
Yeah, he's going to whitewash everything, but he's not going to turn. The key to the race are the independents. They're the key to the race. The Democrats, I think, now that they've gained this suburban group, he is not getting them back. He's not getting suburban women back. So those were voters that usually went to the Republican side. Mm-hmm. So you got a trade-off there. Then you got the workers in the plants that got that are affected by NAFTA and so on. He's got them, but he's lost some of them because certain other things have happened in some of those areas. So, this whole thing's up in the air. He's not out of this race, though. Everyone looks at him. How could they reelect him?
Oh, no, he's not out of this. No, he is not. No, he is not, particularly as has been suggested and as our callers have pointed out, there's enough in the IG report for Trump supporters to wrap their hopes and their convictions around. Absolutely. I did want to
Yeah,
go on.
not only that, you got the follow-up reports going to come out from what's his name?
Oh, Durham, but everybody
Bull
trusts
Durham.
this
Bull
guy.
Durham,
Bull
yeah.
Durham, huh? What do you know?
That's what the president calls him, so let's call him that.
Do you know what I do to temper my views, by the way? Sometimes I get really annoyed with William Barr not seeming to be fair-minded. But you know what stops me from being overly critical of him? John Kennedy
What?
had his brother as Attorney General.
Well, when Nixon got impeached,
John Mitchell.
he had an attorney. He was right. John Mitchell was one of his guys.
Yeah.
This concept of an attorney general not being, the president's guy, it came after Watergate.
Yes, it did. Well,
and before that, forget about the attorney generals. Before that, it was the head of the FBI.
Hey, do you think Clinton ever goes back and says, like in The Godfather, Papa Hajenko, look what I got? Do you think he ever says, Trump has Barr, I had Janet Reno?
Well, yeah, he had Janet Reno, right?
Papa had
Played
Reno.
it by the book.
But I had Reno. Look what Trump has. Hey, I want to go local a little bit. I did a story today, and it's a guy I respect greatly, but it just has to do with what his rhetoric was. If I know you were traveling yesterday on an airplane, did you see where Mike Kaplowitz took a deputy commissioner job with the county? Now, that's all well and good, but I remember him saying he was done or things to that effect. He was done with politics. I'm going back to my investment firm. That's it. I'm moving on. Life has other things. The next thing I know,
Hey, look.
and I realize he's a politician, but still.
That's not what it is. I don't want to mention there are people in the government right now. I talked to one guy. He was making over $1 million a year. Took a job for $150,000.
Yep.
You know what he said to me?
What?
He said, I do the same thing every day. I've been doing it for 30 years. I have enough money. I want to do something. I want to give back. That's what I want to do. Michael has a good business. Michael.
I know he does.
It's a very good business.
That's why I'm surprised.
Yeah. And maybe he's tired of doing that. Maybe he wants to do something different. People don't realize that government jobs are very. You take a job like my county attorney, right?
Mm-hmm.
My IT guy. My IT guy took a 50% cut in salary. Why? Because he was dealing with a stovepipe situation in his job, and now he had this breadth of everything that he dealt with. And the same with the county attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what law firm you want. You get a call from the law firm. Sometimes they don't answer your call. You get a call from the county attorney. They pick up the phone.
Yeah, I know. That's true. That's very true.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
absolutely.
there's a whole difference in what it is. It's not the money. Most of these people are not in it for the money.
No,
There
except
isn't that much money there.
no, I do know that. And, by the way, speaking of this, and I don't know if this surprises you, I do love what I do. And this has been a labor of love now for 15 years. But I have to tell you, and maybe it's just my innate depression kicking in, but the era of Trump has worn me down from the standpoint of there are some days I say, do I really want to do this? Because if you care, these are heartbreaking times.
Yeah, but I don't know how old you are, but if you went through the Watergate,
Yeah, I did, and I loved it.
Anti-war.
I did.
Well, because you participated in it, But if you were on the outside looking at it as an objective person, it would have driven you crazy.
Well, it did, but it drove me crazy in a way where I wanted to. I really became concerned about politics, fell in love with politics, have hundreds of books about it, do radio shows about it. But there's this thing that's a little different now, where, and I know it has to do with my very industry. What it has to do with is the Rush Limbaughs and the Sean Hannitys and the MSNBCs, but more so the Hannitys and the Limbaughs, where they put out this whole fake, even though they may have good reasons in their minds to do it, this whole fake narrative that they got millions of people to believe. And on the other side, the far left, very unscrupulously gives things away to get votes. I mean, it'll wear you down. I'm not saying I'm ready to get out of the business yet, but there are days.
No, I understand. I understand. But, look, the Declaration of Independence was very clear of what happens when a significant amount of people feel they're not being governed properly, what they should do.
Mm-hmm.
And you could get to that point in this country. You could get to that point because there are enough people on either side who are tremendously ticked off about what's going on the other side.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous for all of us who try to look at this with a balanced kind of view.
Well, the thing is, both sides, what's that line in Glory? We're all covered up in it. Both sides have reasons for going too far because, I used to teach this class, Andy, when I was running a training school. And it was called Analyzing Performance Problems. But what it was about is that people do what works. And unfortunately, that outweighs morality. If you lose your moral compass. And that's where we're at. We're at this point where everything's about the cynical answer. I mean, even on Wall Street, I remember a job I almost didn't get because I gave an honest answer. I was up for this communications job with a very powerful woman who was terrific at what she did, but very cynical in the way she operated. It was just harsh, but brilliant. And she said, why do you want this job? And I gave her an honest answer. And I said, because I think that with your talent and your ability to do stuff, I can bring you to the next level by running your communications department. And she says, oh, that's bullshit. I don't want to hear that. And I said, well, what is it that you wanted to hear? Well, what's in this for you? I said, well, that's fun to do. That's what I do. And she said, no, what's in it for you? Well, if you get ahead, I get ahead. Well, that's what I had to give. In fact, but interesting, years later, I had sued the firm for something. And she brought up I won, by the way, but when she brought up when we were in court, she brought up that I gave her that cynical answer as indicative of me. That's where the world has become. How do we fight that?
I don't have answers. I have questions too. And it's good to have questions
because these things work.
People had them.
Why do
too many people? Let me tell you something. Too many people have answers.
This is very true.
And the answers aren't based on enough information. You're better off with the questions.
That's very, very true. What's that old, oh God, I forget who is Gloria Steinem, or I forget. No, not Gloria Steinem. It'll come to me. But a philosopher was asked on her deathbed, what's the answer? And she said, what's the question? And it's really true. So we're headed towards an election. Who's been interestingly quiet? Do you think that your boss, do you think that Governor Cuomo is still interested in running for president one day? I mean, he probably, had he run, would have been in the mix.
Maybe, because he would have gone toe to toe with him. Because he's rough,
Yeah, no kidding.
Smart and rough.
Yeah, I know.
And he's done a relatively good job. But I mean, the Trump's got he's got his hands full with the state of New York right now.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he?
I mean, I'm on my way to a meeting right now. I mean, there's always money problems. There's always the
$6 billion worth of $6 billion worth of money problems.
Goody two shoes groups here that are great.
Well, listen, we've got to go.
Goo-goos.
Yeah, two things. One, thank you for your time. Also, thank you for being my what should I say? My father confessor for a few moments about how tough this is lately. Andy Spano,
just take it easy. Enjoy your life.
I do, actually, but thank you very much. We're going to go straight ahead now. We have a special report from Bob Cox. And Bob, as you know, has been covering just about better than anyone does. Bob has been covering the issue of the football coach here in New Rochelle. So we're going to reach out to Bob right now. And first, we're going to give you a quick weather report. And Bob, I'm sure, is already on the line. We just connected with him. We'll get to him momentarily. He's with us. He's scheduled for 9:05. I got 3 more minutes. but I won't take that long. It's 30 degrees here across Westchester. It's up county, a little bit colder, but we're getting up to 35 today. No chance of rain, sunshine through high thin clouds. The average temperature 32. That's freezing for the uninitiated. Tonight, mostly cloudy, the temperature 28. Friday, cloudy with rain late in the day, the temperature 45. Saturday, rain early, then remaining cloudy, the high 55 degrees. And Sunday, partly sunny and breezy, the high of 47. And the weather today was brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. And it's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. This next half hour brought to you by Aging Issues Radio and their parent, Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Kahn. Plug in virtual reality and Dominic's Fine Cigars. They're located right over on Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days a week, and tomorrow they will specifically sponsor Jake's Picks of the Week. And so we go forward. We did the story this morning, our lead local story that Coach DiRienzo has resigned from as football coach in New Rochelle. Still a lot of unanswered questions. And the man who follows everything in New Rochelle, we think better than anybody else, including this issue, is Bob Cox, the managing editor and publisher of Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008. Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing?
Pretty well. Thank you for making some extra time for us this morning. We looked at all the regular news outlets, et cetera, and a lot of them raise more questions than answers. Will the coach again? Will we ever know any details about why he's actually not coming back, et cetera, and what the school district's position on it is? What say you, and what does your reporting tell us?
Well, what I've been saying on your air for the past few weeks, which is that this would end with a whimper, not a bang, that there
Yes,
would
you
be no sort of Mueller report or maybe a Horowitz report, if we can be more timely. This is typically how it's done. I did obtain a copy of the settlement agreement, so I have specifics, on what exactly happened and what was agreed to. But the main thing is that he's, continuing on his suspension until the end of the year, which means he'll get paid and get benefits till the end of the year. And then in January, he's due for one lump sum payment for about, he's going to be splitting his annual salary, $154,000. So he gets half of that in January, half of that in March, and that'll be the end of it. He resigned actually the Friday before the state championship game. The board executed that agreement on December 3rd, and he had 7 days to revoke it, which is why they held it until after December 10th, and then they put out the press statement yesterday, December 11th.
Bob, and based on the people that you know and the sources that you have, do you, A, think he'll coach again? Do you think any of the things we don't know will come back to haunt him in any way? Or do you think, with the confidentiality agreements in place, et cetera, that he will go somewhere else and coach?
Well, I do think that he will coach, and I have heard that he has already been out interviewing. I tend to doubt he'll coach at the high school level. So my expectation is he may go coach at the college level. Where that would be, I wouldn't want to speculate too much, but I would note that somebody has a relationship with Greg Schiano, recently returned at Rutgers, where his two sons are coaches. So I could see that, or maybe some smaller school. But I think that he will. He's relatively young, Bob, right? He's still got some years left in him,
Yeah.
so I'm sure he wants to coach, and people would want to have him coach. I'd be interested to see if the woman in Yonkers ever files a civil suit. If she doesn't file one by August, of next year, which she's allowed to do under the Child Victims Act, then that would raise questions about the validity of that claim in the first place.
Yeah.
But as far as the district ever issuing a statement about it or talking about it, they won't. So things might leak out, but There'll never be any official explanation. It's not really a confidentiality clause per se. It's a non-disparagement clause, really. So in theory, the coach could talk about his version of what happened, but my guess is that he won't.
You know what's interesting about this, and this is from a human and common sense perspective, not the law, not in deference to what rules he may have broken that the school district took issue with. But if he resurrects, if you will, to coach another high school or go to the college level and does so successfully, it raises the question of if someone, and I'll just use the term, if someone did something that was forgivable enough to be rehired in good standing elsewhere, it raises the question, why wasn't it forgivable enough to allow it to continue where he is? And that's what has me scratching my head a little bit.
Well, one reason you signed the settlement agreement is because you don't want to litigate the matter any more than the other side. And so what exactly went on, we're never going to know officially. And so, the story is that this was all about the student who was drunk at the cafeteria. But I could imagine a scenario where people came forward with additional allegations, whether they were proven or not. He may not have wanted even the allegations out there. But like I said, I would find it highly unlikely that we'll get some sort of sit down with the coach where he explains his side of the story. My guess is that he's, just looking to move on from this and put it in the rearview mirror. That's based on talking to people who've spoken to him. I myself have not spoken to him yet.
It makes a lot of sense where you're going with it. Bob Cox, our guest, a managing editor and publisher of Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008. Of course, remember, Bob will be with us in the studio for his long-form interview again on Monday. Bob, the fallout now for the superintendent and the board president, are they still getting heat? How long do you expect this to continue? And are things evolving as you expected they would?
Well, past being prologue in this district, and I've been covering it long enough to have seen wave after wave of scandal and controversy. We'll get one last flurry of activity at the next board meeting, which is December 17th. Now that the resignation is out there and it's official, I'd expect a lot of people to show up to rail against the fact of what happened now that it's happened. But by the time we roll into the next board meeting, which would be in January, my guess is you'll see about a 90% decline in the people showing up. Yeah, some people will mention it. It'll come up now and then, but you won't see the sort of public flurry of activity that we've had. That doesn't mean people are going to forget. It just means that there's really nothing to protest. They're not trying to bring the coach back. So I think the animosity that has been built up against the board and the superintendent will remain with the people who are upset. They're not going to forget this. But in terms of, sort of public demonstrations and that sort of thing like we've had, I think that we'll have one last bit of that and then it'll be over.
Bob, if I may, the coaching staff, I don't know if you know them. I do not know them well. Are there any front runners for the job?
I would have no idea. I don't know enough about, who those guys are and how they break things down. But, obviously they have to find somebody, and they're going to want to find them soon because they do have a winter conditioning program for the student athletes. And so that's, even though it's a fall sport, it's still something that they actually work on year round. So my guess is they'll move relatively quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if they named a head coach, next week, but I do think they'll pick somebody from within the program.
Bob, can you give us any teasers when you come on with us Monday for your long form hour? Any stories that we should think about or check your newspaper for this weekend?
Well, I've been checking my email here, but I don't see the official announcement, but I'm going to take the risk that he won't be too upset with me, but we can talk about the judge in New Rochelle who's being appointed today.
Oh,
so that will be That will be Council Member Jared Rice is going to be replacing his mother. The mayor is
Shocker.
appointing him.
Gee, I had no idea, Robert. No, not the least.
Well, it's been a badly kept secret, but it'll be made official today, I'm told.
Oh, we're going to have fun
hopefully
on
I
Monday.
won't bother Jared Rice too much by disclosing it a few minutes early, but in any case, we'll have that to talk about, and certainly more reporting on the Apex investigation.
Of course. I can't
We
wait
should-
for that. Don't give it all away yet. But hey, Bob.
Yeah, so we have that going. There's a few other things.
Regarding Jared Rice, I almost feel like Tom, like the Godfather saying, "Why didn't you tell everyone what everybody else? Why didn't you tell your Don what everyone else seems to know?" My granddaughter knew Jared Rice was going to take that job. Robert Bob Cox, managing editor, Talk of the Sound. Keep doing what you do. Consider the source since 2008. He'll be with us Monday at 9:00 for the full hour. Thank you very much. All righty, folks, we're going to take an early leave today. We've got to hit the road, and we are going to do that right now. It's Thursday, December 12th, 2019. We have a lot of people to thank and a few people to acknowledge. Vince Russo, John Bailey, Mike Bako, Andy Spano, Ivar Hayden, and, of course, Bob Cox. The callers once again distinguished themselves. Anthony, Vince, I'm saying Vince Malfitano to separate him out. And of course others. I may have missed a few because it has been a very busy day. We want to thank our sponsors today, Aging Issues Radio and their parent, Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Com, pluginvirtualreality.com, and Dominic's Fine Cigars, who tomorrow will be the sole sponsor of Jake's Picks of the Week. You won't want to miss that at 8:00 tomorrow. We have some surprise guests coming on tomorrow, not the least of which will be, let me see, we got all kinds of stuff going on tomorrow. We're moving up in the lineup. Heziaris going to put him on a little earlier in the morning because we have a surprise guest at 9:00. We'll tell you who that is. Well, wait a minute. Tom, we got a minute to take a call from Tom. Let's see if Tom can call in. 914-222-3141. If he does, before we wrap up our acknowledgments, we'll put him on. We'll say hello to Thomas. We could not reach him earlier. Now, again, tomorrow, as I said, Heziaris will be with us. I'm trying to remember who I booked for. I can't even remember. Oh, well, we'll get to Tom tomorrow. We're not seeing anything come through the board, and we got to go. We'll see you all tomorrow. We will be live in studio, and we'll reach out to Tom and give him some time so he can be heard. All right, I'm going to do something very unusual here. We keep hearing off air from Tom and from Mitch. And you know what? We're going to give them a moment since we have some time. We've sort of signed off, but hey, one of the things about being the GM, being the program director, is that I can extend the program. So, gentlemen, if you're listening, the phone number to use is 222-3141, 222-3141. And he says he's calling, but I do not. I'm going to have to call him. Unless, let me see, what line? He must be calling the hotline, but we're not using the hotline today. So I will, one more time, I'm going to shout out 222-3141. You must use that line today. Otherwise, I will give you gentlemen some time tomorrow, some dedicated time. Nope, still not coming through. So we will catch up tomorrow. I'll see everybody then.